joy, possibility, and goodness. If I had to recommend like one thing right now to everyone, this would be it.
Enlightening and therapeutic and terrifying at times.
I'm a 40-year-old man and I love Harry Styles. Okay? I'm just saying it.
Of all the things, if you're gonna have a time machine, I need to go tell 98 about Goop.
Ugly cry, and then just like pee your pants laughing all in one episode.
Season's greetings, Long Walkers. Dave here to introduce our first new episode in 6 months. Palmer and I took some time off to reflect, to listen and learn instead of talk, to reconnect off mic as friends, and reconsider how we want to move forward with the podcast. So there will be some format experimenting, such as me trying out this intro-outro business, and I'm sure there will be episodes focused on a particular thing from time to time. But the main thing I can tell you is that we plan to prioritize the conversations and our connection to each other as friends above all else. Obviously, this has been a really tough year, full of many super challenging things, and I thought it'd be fun to get some guys together for an old school, audio-only celebration of the things that brought us comfort and joy in 2020. Kind of an online holiday party for our little gang, but with the structure of the top 10 favorite things Palmer and I usually do in January. If you're a longtime listener, you'll likely recognize some or perhaps all of the voices in the opening teaser. Thank you for sticking with us. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you for joining us for episode 86. 86, not like the numerical slang to get rid of someone, but like 1986, the year Jean-Claude Van Damme made his speaking role as Ivan the Russian in No Retreat, No Surrender, which just so happens to be the last film I saw on the big screen on the Mystery Science Theater 3000 Great Cheesy Movie Circus Tour before COVID relegated all of us to our rooms for the last 9 months. Anyhow, grab your beverage of choice, maybe even wrap yourself in an ugly holiday sweater, and listen in as we sing the praises of some stuff that helped us through this fucking dumpster fire of a year. It turned out to be a really rich conversation. I'm really grateful for all the unexpected places it went. I'm going to come back on afterwards to share a list of things that I myself put out into the world in 2020, as well as some recommendations I didn't get to in the flow of things here. I actually finished a bunch of stuff, a lot of which I have mentioned on the show over the years, and some are just kind of some surprises even to me. But so if you're open to that, I thank you in advance and encourage you to stick around after the group merriment is over for some shameless self-promotion. But now, without further delay, here's our talk from December 11th, 2020. Psst.
Hello, good sir. Can you hear me?
I can indeed. And you, me?
Outstanding. Yes, I can. Oh, I love the Christmas sweater.
Oh, thank you.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. It's 'tis the season, I guess, right?
Tis. Man, your hair looks rather unruly. I like it.
Oh, yeah. I don't know I had to wash it. I looked so fucking crazy. I took a shower in the day, which I don't usually do. We thought about cutting it, maybe, but I mean that would be that'd be extreme.
Nice. Actually, literally just finished cutting my hair.
Really? Oh.
Yeah.
I'd go for it if there was some. I mean, I'm basically gonna have to just shave it. Would be the thing, which I'm not totally against, but I've been kind of enjoying the crazy.
Nice.
Craziness.
Yeah, I like it.
Thanks.
Awesome. No, we don't have any good Christmas sweaters. Oh, sweet.
Oh, you're getting a wardrobe upgrade?
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, wardrobe change.
That's great.
I don't know. I was going with the old pixelated Batman.
I love it. Yeah.
Cool.
That's very cool.
Oh.
Hey,
okay.
Twinkie. Look at that.
Hello.
Hi.
Back. What's up, Twinkie?
Hey, what's happening?
Sound great. Can you hear us okay? Or me? Well,
Yep.
I guess
Oh,
us.
yeah. Sultry tones.
Well, look who's talking. I can't even bring you up in the house. The bride's always like, "Ooh, Twinkie." It's like, no.
Well, I don't have holiday apparel. However, I have holiday drink.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
That counts. I mean, nothing is required.
Of course.
Obviously.
Hang on a second here. I'm gonna reach around and get it.
That's
Oh,
what she said.
Ale. Yes. Oh man, what are you drinking?
So we bought the captain. We bought the captain, and we also got this brilliant
Holiday nog?
holiday nog. It's of course being the weirdo vegan.
Nice.
It is almond milk, and it is delicious.
No, we have some almond nog.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
I love it.
Nice.
Stan the man.
Hola.
Greetings.
What's going on?
Cheers.
We're just getting settled.
Cheers.
It's good to see you again.
Your beard is
You as
looking
well.
jolly.
Oh, you know what? And I was like sleeping on it. It's all matted down. When I shower and it's in its full glory, it's good.
It's
Gotcha.
pretty glorious.
So you need a day shower.
Yeah, it's working from home again. Like I think I showered on Wednesday, but I can't like if they asked me to swear on George Washington's Bible on that, I don't think I would. Hey, what are you guys drinking over there?
I just poured a Guinness that I started to drink too quickly.
Here's
Excellent.
some nog.
I've got some interesting. This is a new
Oh.
thing we tried.
Oh man.
So I just
Oh
got
my
Buffalo,
gosh.
I got Buffalo Trace's bourbon cream.
Okay, yeah.
Good shit, man.
I went to the store and I didn't see the Buffalo Traces, but I saw this bourbon cream. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty solid.
Have we met before?
You know what? I'm not really sure. I guess I've heard about you many, many, many times.
Yeah,
We may
same.
not have
But
met.
I don't know if we have or not. You kind of you have a little Lin-Manuel Miranda vibe going on there.
Very much so.
Yeah.
I will
You
take
know?
that 100%.
Yeah.
That dude is my hero, or
Oh.
one of the many.
Yeah,
heroes that I have.
absolutely. Amazing. I just get ready to teach the Revolutionary. Well, we are in the Revolutionary War unit right now in 8th grade, and we're going to do a whole Hamilton lesson. It's going to be great.
Yeah,
Oh,
for
cool.
sure. Any excuse to watch that.
Yeah. So I'm drinking, by the way, from Platform Beer Company, Yule Jude.
Oh,
Yule Jude.
Mm.
Hazy IPA with natural flavors. It is. It's like got winter spicy IPA-ish kind of thing. It's good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It's good.
my cat's trying to drink the nog. This could not go well once the rum's in there.
What's the cat? Boy or a girl?
Girl. Her
What's
name
her-
is Squeaker.
Squeaker. I hope to see Squeaker just sort of wandering
Yes.
around in the empty space behind you and keeling over.
There was like a viral squirrel video a week or two ago. I think it was up in like Minnesota or Wisconsin where a squirrel was imbibing upon fruit that
Yeah, I saw that.
had
Fermented.
fermented, and yeah, it was very inebriated.
That's hilarious.
We'll see what happens, you know?
Like, I guess it came back for more.
Yeah. In 2020, you can't blame them.
I was going to say, it's got to be 2020 for squirrels, too.
Yeah.
How's the family?
Oh, my gosh. Spectacular.
Good.
Things seem to be going well, knock on wood.
Yeah. Good.
I knocked on wood. That's why. Oh, there's commentary in the background, in case you don't know. Like, if I say something completely...
The commentariat has already begun.
Yes. Oh, man. We'll see how it goes. She's supposed to be having a video date with her girlfriends right now, too. So,
Oh.
but it may or may not start.
Now, do they pillow fight when they're online too, or is it only when they're together?
Topless. Palmer!
Yeah.
What up,
Hey! How's it going?
That beard is one sexy. You are one sexy motherfucker. Like, I'm not even gonna lie.
It's so gray. It's ridiculous.
Look at beard.
He's calling
Morgan looking at your beard right now. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. This is only like October, I think. I trimmed it way down in September, so
Yeah.
it's winter beard.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna grow mine now too.
I actually, so every year I'll trim it one last time around my birthday because I want to look good for my birthday. And then I don't trim it again until I can't stand it sometime in the spring. I actually, like 2 weeks ago, we don't let him do it anymore because he would eat them and then throw them up. But we used to like every walk, Murphy would eventually pick up a stick and he would just carry it all the way home. And I'd take it from his mouth, like right before we let him in the house, and I'd just like throw it over by the grill that's on our porch. And I had this huge pile of sticks. And I told Ash, I was like, I'm going to burn those sticks. And she's like, okay. So I put them in my, I stacked them all nice and neat in my charcoal chimney and lit it. And the flame got too high. And I tried to like carry it. And I felt just this half of my beard, just like it shortened by like 3/4 of an inch for like, I was like, oh it just smelled so bad. And it was all curled
Like
up.
curled?
Oh yeah, it was bad. It was bad. So moral of the story is just let the dog eat the sticks. Don't try to burn them. You'll just lose your beard.
Fair enough.
Words to live by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One sweater seems to be not enough for me. I'm down in the.
That is an amazing sweater, Dave.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
very festive. I thought of that while I was like doing the dishes frantically to finish up and was like, oh shit. I'm wearing my Thunder Buddies t-shirt. There's nothing Christmassy about this at all.
That's perfect. I mean, maybe not
Thunder
Christmassy,
Buddies.
but it's appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah, I stalled on and like, did anybody else really struggle to come up with top 10 things that were great about this year? Like, I stalled at 6. I'm just gonna fluff the last 3 here.
I was just going to pretend like other people's picks were mine as well.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Oh my gosh, that was on my list too.
Oh, you bastard! That's
Very
so
well
smart.
played.
Yeah.
Well, it's obviously
I got
it's
a couple things.
It's a
I got a
very loose. I didn't struggle for it because I keep a list of the things that that are new to me, and so I was just looking over that, and I was like looking at the things that I'd highlighted. I was like, oh, that was great. I was just sort of pulling them aside, and I realized I was like, oh, what am I doing this for? Because we didn't have plans at the time, and then I was like, oh, well, we'll use this as an excuse. So that's all it is. It's an excuse.
Yeah.
I was doing prep, like kind of trying to keep my remarks short by writing bullet points and stuff, but I ran out of that too. So I don't even know how many I ultimately selected. but I figured we just like ping pong around, and I don't know. I'm just glad to see all of you. So that's the
Yeah,
that's the
it's
real
so
thing.
great. You guys look fantastic. Oh my gosh.
We're almost there.
Seriously, like so ready for 21. It's ridiculous. I don't even need it to be good because it's not going to take much to be better than this, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
Right. Did you guys see that that Texas lawsuit got denied by the Supreme Court? Like,
No.
it did.
The one that
Yeah.
all
Oh,
the Senate
thank
or the
Christ.
Republicans were
Yes.
getting behind. That scared the
Yeah.
shit out of me when I heard about it this morning. I was like doing fine
Yeah.
for a while, and that threw me
And-
off. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Hey, you
and
just
my-
take my number one thing. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh man, there's
Yeah.
a buzz. Talk about stealing thunder.
Yeah.
I know my opponent in this last election is the one that pushed Ohio to join the lawsuit, and so I put a post out on my page, which I'm still keeping active for reasons maybe we'll discuss tonight.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
And we did a call to action about flooding his office with calls and emails about this, and apparently mission accomplished because I guess his staff person was like exhausted at 4:30 and was like, we have been slammed all day. We got to get out of here.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I was happy to see the Ohio AG was like condemning the lawsuit, which was good.
File that one under surprised.
Yeah.
For me, but-
Well, I mean, come on. There's just you can only entertain lunacy for so long. I want to think the one silver lining is like it like exposed all these fuckers as like they're seditious. They just don't like.
Yeah, I know. It's
Were they not exposed to this point though?
I know.
Well, I mean, it's like I don't know. I keep saying like, how can you keep it's undeniable, but you would have thought that like years ago, I guess.
Yeah.
but you know, like not to get too serious, but I was just watching this. Like I watch PBS for fun. That's what I do when I sit down and have alone time. I turn on PBS. God damn, I'm a nerd. But there's a show, a BBC came out last year called The Rise of the Nazis, and it's just about. It only goes until 1934, and it just talks about the ascension as a party. And like, it is not hyperbole to say like the Nazis did every single one of these things. And even if you're looking now, like a lot of those 106 congressmen that voted to support this, they're not doing it because they are Republicans. They're Trumpers. And because remember, other Republicans that didn't join this, now they're going to be said, oh, you're not a Republican. You're a rhino, this and this and that. So it's like, people are starting to leave their political ideology behind for a person, for a demagogue, right? An ideologue. And so now Trump is becoming this representation of everything they want and think America should be and everything else, instead of a party platform or our founding documents, or, on and on and on. And it's scary shit, man. I mean, he's not going anywhere. He could cause a lot of freaking trouble.
Oh yeah. It's going to be the largest organized, I don't know, like fringe group, quote unquote. I mean, that's what I imagine. The rallies will just continue as they have. It will look the same, just hopefully get less press.
and use the bully pulpit as much, hopefully.
Yeah.
I saw something. There was like a newspaper that was pressing Moscow to like offer essentially clement. Ooh, whoa.
What?
I think.
Anybody else hear that?
Yeah, there might be a headphone jack somewhere. So I'll check our headphone jack.
Somebody
What is that?
playing a didgeridoo?
That's what it
That
sounds
is what
like.
it
Huh?
sounds like. Yeah.
And now for my solo on my didgeridoo. Stand by.
I didn't hear it, so maybe it was from my end.
Oh man.
I'm like, what are you guys talking about?
Well, I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm a federal employee, and so all of these things that you're talking about have a direct impact on me. My mental well-being, mostly. My joke is, for the last 4 years, I felt like I'm the janitor on the Death Star. Like, I just signed up to work for for whatever the party was, and I'm just trying to clean the toilets, and then there's this guy's trying to like destroy the universe, and that's kind of how I felt,
Right.
Yeah.
You feel like you're employed by the bad guy, but like I don't want to be the bad guy. Right. So, like right now, for example, the government was supposed to shut down tonight, and they got together and they passed a 1 week extension.
Yeah.
So they can work out fiscal spending for 2021, hopefully by next Friday. And we do this every single year. Right. And sometimes, like 2 years ago, I still have Palmer's voicemail, by the way, that I listen to occasionally, when we were shut down for 36 days, and not getting paid. And so all of these things, while they to other people might seem like, oh, it's just political shenanigans, they have a real impact on people's day-to-day living. So
the most frustrating thing is like the first appropriation that usually gets hammered out is like the congressional payroll. They'll get that hammered out so that their paychecks still go, and then they'll let the rest of the government shut down around them. Super frustrating.
We'll see.
A guy I work with said that you could solve this problem every year is if you just passed a law that said they weren't allowed to pass the congressional appropriation until everything else was figured out, and then it gets solved every time.
Every time.
Yep. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, not too deep into politics, I guess, but
well, then I guess we'll end on fingers crossed for Georgia to pull through in the Senate, so we won't run into any problems, right?
Stan the man, you're probably gonna have to introduce your cat in the background here.
Oh, a cat. That one is Santana. We call her Carlos, and then we also our other cat is Ringo Stella. So we have a Ringo and a Carlos, but they're both female, and. So it's hilarious because this cat right there is like a real pain in the ass. Like we love her. I'm her person for some reason. Morgan saved her life. Like she got thrown out as a kitten. She was like living on this woman's windowsill, and like someone put us something out like about this poor kitten. So Morgan actually went and rescued her. I put her in a box, all this stuff, and she hates Morgan. Like wants to be with me 24/7. Like I kid you not, like. When I step out of my room, like at 7 a.m. every day, she's at my door, and like I can barely get down the stairs and stand there and pee because she's just like rubbing me constantly. She stands and looks at me while I pee, like all this stuff. It's crazy. And then Ringo is like real, like chill. Like she just is like real cool cat, like just like the chillest cat of all time. And this one's high strung and always attacks her. But it's funny. My dog is afraid of this cat. And so, like, if it was hilarious tonight, I was cracking up. I was sitting in here, and Santana was just on the floor in front of the stairs, and Teddy had to pee, and he came in front of the stairs, and he stopped. And like, you can see him looking at me, and he's looking at the cat, and looking at me. I was like, "Come here, Teddy," you know. And like, he was like, he didn't know what to do, and then finally he just laid down. Oh, great! There he is. Hello, Teddy. You came down. Yeah, so, but it's funny because the personality of my two cats match the personality of my two middle daughters, like, to a T. Santana annoys the shit out of Ringo, and it's like that with my two daughters, too. So it's fun. Works out. Well, that was a long walk for a short drink right there. That or you just wanted the name of the cat.
You're in the right place.
Nailed it.
It's been too long. I think I last saw you for the Disney thing. Was it the Disney show?
You were on Disney.
RoboCop.
Oh,
RoboCop. Yeah.
okay, yeah.
I had loaned RoboCop to this young kid that worked in my first office when I started, and he just returned it to me, and I thought he had it that entire time and didn't watch it.
RoboCop lives with me now.
Yeah. Don't loan me things. And so, like, I opened it, and there was a post-it in there that said, I finally watched this. I really enjoyed it. So he actually watched it.
Nice. I hear rumors of a remake.
Another one?
Another remake? They did the one. It was awful.
Yeah.
If they do it, they need to go, like, that. The whole point was that it was R, and, like, they took it so far.
Right.
So
The first thing I think of when I hear RoboCop is bitches leave.
yeah. Bitches leave.
Yeah, it's what do you think is going to happen with movies? So I just saw, like, you know, the one Lenox Theater, you know, in Columbus. That's the one I, like, always went to as a kid. Like, it just closed permanently. Like, movie theaters are closed around everywhere. Like, I think that movie theaters might be a casualty of this 2020 because there'll still be movie theaters, just like there's still drive-ins, but movies, all of a sudden, they have, like, movie production companies have maximized their profits threefold by cutting out the theaters with the direct to consumer. Like, that Disney did with Mulan, and, like, you know, what is happening with Wonder Woman with HBO and all that. That's the wave of the future. And it's kind of sad. It's taking us out of our community again, right? People are just going to continue to be more isolated now. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually was checking out I was going through my expenses and stuff, and the app that I use, you can just do graphs and charts, like, just by, like, checking different filters real quick. And I just did a search just to see when the last time I had marked that I went to the movies, because that expense will always be in there. And it was, I saw The Last Jedi, or not The Last Jedi. Is that the third
Rise
one?
of Skywalker.
Rise of the Skywalker. Jesus, thank you. With Ash, like, at the end of December 21st. So it's been a year. I haven't seen a movie. I've been to the theater in over a year, and that's
also my last movie in a theater.
Yeah,
Likewise.
it's crazy. Yeah. So, this HBO thing, Christopher Nolan, of course, had, like, tons of problems with the HBO deal. That they made that major announcement that they're going to simultaneously release their films in the theater and HBO Max at the same time at no additional expense to HBO Max subscribers. And it really, there was also the director of the Dune reboot. He also spoke out against this deal that they're doing. So I agree. I think there is, it is the future. I've really noticed, like, it took them a little bit to catch up, but Hollywood really, I don't know if you have noticed on YouTube too, there's been a lot of saturation of, like, mainstream content being created for YouTube that's pushing out, like, independent creators, basically. So,
But you mean from independent creators who happen to be famous, right? Isn't that, because I think we talked about this, right? Or do you mean, like, studios producing stuff.
There's also studios producing stuff now. I'm noticing stuff like I mean, the news is a really great example of it. Like they're making a business of synthesizing their news now, their 24-hour stream into like consumable bits that are very highly produced, right? Like, but then also absorb all of the like typical clickbaity things that you would expect for a really grabby video, right? Like really nice screen grab, like for the thumbnail, really catchy title that's like probably doesn't get said until like the last like seconds of the video happens, and it's just like barely touched upon, but it's inflammatory, so it's going to grab your attention. And taking those bits that they already sold, they have advertising dollars for. That's what funded the creation of those on their 24-hour feed. And now, so if they can, just crank out these little bits of video, and even if just a handful of them like really go viral or really get a lot of views, like they're going to monetize off of that stuff they already made money on because it went on the air. So it's kind of a no-brainer for them, but I agree, it's totally isolating for us. That's the problem.
Well, I will say about the HBO thing is they are still releasing them in cinema. I mean,
right.
I get it. Like you're not making it exclusive, and that will drive probably the bulk of people to. I mean, all of us here, I think, love cinema. My wife hates movie theaters because she thinks they're just kind of disgusting. Like popcorn everywhere and sticky floors and whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a porn theater now that I say it. Maybe she's going to dodgy.
Maybe she's going to the wrong theaters.
But I guess, giving people that choice, they're still doing that. I mean, I wish I could have gone to see Tenet in IMAX. I mean, I think I've seen every Christopher Nolan movie since The Dark Knight in IMAX.
Wow.
Because he makes them for that type of experience.
That large format, yeah.
He wants people to see it, and I get it, and I would love to experience that. However, I don't want people to die to go see Tenet.
Yeah. How was Tenet, by the way?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh,
yeah, I haven't seen it either.
I think you can buy it soon, but I probably will just rent it. But yeah, it's, would I rather see Dune in an IMAX theater or a large format theater? Sure. But if we don't have vaccines and we're not ready, and it's not worth it to me to go see that. So,
well, and it's it's like this frustrating line too, because there just is going to be a shift. This is forcing like progress, and sometimes that progress necessarily is not pleasant, but it still is progress, right? It's the same thing with there's no blockbusters anymore today, right? But and we still kind of are sad about that because we grew up with it. But these kids today don't give a damn. There's no blockbusters, right? Everything's streaming, and I think that now I just kind of think that theaters are going to largely go away. It'll be like a special occasion when you go. Like we'll take our kids to the drive-through, like the drive-in theater once a year, and it's like an event. You know what I mean? And I think movie theaters are going to be like that. And let's face it, like for as sad as I am, because I love going to movie theaters, I also love popping on my sweatpants and pajamas, cracking open the whiskey, sprawling out on the couch and watching my movie on my, big screen too. I mean, that's really nice. Pausing when I need to piss.
Yeah.
Or need to go get a beer or anything like that. I agree, but for those of us though, like going to the movies it's not even necessarily the movie I'm seeing. It's the experience of going to the theater. That's a passion of mine. That's one of the few passions that I have. And it's hard for me. That really we had a niece down here that they did. I don't know if I'm sure they're doing it in your areas too, where you can rent a theater like almost dirt cheap, like for $100 to see a movie in a theater if you want to. And I know some of them, they require like you have to have like a certain amount of concession sales also along with that for that deal to happen. But they were doing a birthday for my niece at one of those, and they were going to see Guardians of the Galaxy. And Ohio ramped up like the week that was supposed to happen. And I didn't want to go. I just can't.
Yeah.
It's too big of a risk. And yeah, it's heartbreaking though. I get that's where it's going to go, and I like watching movies in my sweats, and I like all those things. They're all great, but there's nothing that will ever compare to like a midnight release and being in an audience that's like jam packed, like sardines, and they're all a bunch of fans for that movie that's about to like pop up on that screen, and you can feel that energy. There's just something about being in that like packed house and like everybody getting excited on the anticipation of it starting, and the bass hitting your chest and the greasy ass popcorn that's like awful for you, and
all those sticky floors that's sticky for one reason or another.
Yeah. That's all.
But no, I agree. You know, one of my favorite memories I still talk about today, just because it's nostalgic memories, is a whole group of me. I was a senior in high school, and we all went to the midnight showing of Titanic. You know, and like we talk about all that all the time. I mean, so is my internet choppy?
A little bit.
A little. Yeah.
No.
It's coming back, I think.
Well, and it's like for us cabin kids, that was a big thing. I remember Jackson holding up the stack of ticket stubs from like 1998, and it looked like a flip book, like it was thick.
He still has them. He was home.
Awesome.
I think for Christmas. He's lived in Europe for the better part of the last 10 years, maybe more, but yeah, he was back and he was sending me pictures of stuff from his, must have been his dad's basement or something. And the ticket stubs were there. And I was like, oh shit. And there was one point, because he was proud of him back then. We used to go every week at least once. He and I, and then eventually like it grew to like the cabin kid thing. But for his birthday one year, I took one of the greatest pictures of any person I've ever scene, which was just like him. He's this like curly-haired, red-haired kid giving this really funny face to the camera, wearing like tight Hawaiian shorts. I mean, he's got to be like, I don't know, 7 or 8. Great face, great picture. So I did it. I don't know if I had the ability to do Photoshop or something, or maybe even he did this and then I made it a shirt and he didn't know it. But it was that picture on a white shirt. We took it to Kinko's and it just said, "Oh, the ticket stubs I could show you," or "Oh, the tickets I could show you." Yeah, it was a point of pride for him.
That's great.
I wonder if it will be. I was listening to you all talk, and I realized, one, that I get my entertainment news from this program, so I'm out of the loop. and two, I wonder if it'll be a little bit more like the death of the multiplex, and that there'll be like fewer screens, more specialty type things, maybe kind of Alamo Draft House ish. But also maybe just more like, I don't know, like, a lot of you know, like Great Oaks in Wadsworth, just like the 2-screen thing by the grocery store, That
would be my dream, like to own a 2-screen theater that you could live over. Like, that would be so awesome.
Yeah, it would.
I think a lot of times too, you can, if you come to the cinema, you get this specific thing. I don't know, not like a special feature before it.
Oh yeah.
The director talks about the movie if you stay afterwards, or you know what I mean. I think that there will be that, if for people who do love the theater, and maybe have a passion for movies, you can appeal to those people to still bring them into the theater. Maybe you're adding additional.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't buy 4K Blu-rays unless there's, a director's commentary or something I'm really interested in hearing. Right. That's an additional feature, and I could see that kind of being a way to draw people in, versus how you said, just sprawling out on the couch, which is also a good way. The problem with me is, I'm going to go watch this new movie and then end up watching Mad Max again. So,
Oh,
Yeah.
are you really watching Fury Road for the 40th time?
so Twinkie, what do you think? There are rumblings that they might be actually being able to get the Furiosa movie off the ground. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I have heard that. I've heard that our George Miller will be directing, and I'm here for it for sure.
The one report that I read was a little disappointing that it's unlikely they will be bringing Charlize Theron back.
Oh, really?
To play Fury. So much time has passed that they can't de-age her enough to hit the time frame that they're covering for Furiosa, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's
I don't want to live in a world where Charlize Theron is too old to de-age.
yeah. I don't know. I can't
I understand
imagine
what you're saying. I can understand that. I get that. I also just get to live in a world where I can watch her kick the living shit out of the post-apocalypse whenever I want.
I need to go back and watch that movie again. Every time I see Twinkie, I'm like, Jesus, why didn't I watch it before?
Well, let me tell you about the last viewing I watched.
That world, he's like that. He's so happy.
Okay, so we had spoken about 1998 in movies, several different of us, and I happened to look up the top 10 movies of 1998. Can we just talk about that real quick?
Palmer could probably recite them for you.
All right,
99.
So actually, should we? I want to know, Palmer, how many you can name just off the top of your head. What do you think?
Oh, that's awful. 1998.
Yeah,
99 is my year. That's the year I really followed, because there's just so much good shit in 99. 98 is it's the same thing with the solve the Rubik's Cube. I'm not I'm not writing, and I can't just look at that.
Look, there's Rain Man. All right, so here, according to Roger Ebert,
All 9 Yards, is that on there? That's probably
I think that was 99, but let's find out. I didn't read this yet.
Okay.
All right. Primary Colors.
Okay.
Do you remember that one? That was like the
John Travolta
one about the president or something. Yeah, John Travolta.
Yeah.
Life is Beautiful. I saw that in the theater.
That was Academy Award winner. That's the
Roberto Benigni.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Shakespeare in Love, which won Best Picture, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Best Picture, yeah. Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember now why that pisses me off. You know what else is in 1998? Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it beat out by freaking Shakespeare in Love.
Oh, that does seem odd.
If we would have known about Goop in 1998, Shakespeare in Love would I'll let you know. Of all the things, if you're gonna have a time machine, I need to go tell 98 about Goop, because that way, Saving Private Ryan will win Best Picture.
Yes.
You know how fucking batshit crazy Gwyneth Paltrow gets. Woo!
Yeah. Number 7, Babe, Pig in the City.
That'll do, Pig.
Number 6, Elizabeth, which actually my wife and I just watched a couple weeks ago, because we just rewatched The Tudors from Showtime, and so then
they had a trilogy of Queen movies. That's the first. Right?
Yeah, that was one of Steiner's Palmer's picks. Elizabeth, I believe. No, was it? Yeah. Might have been too I'm conflicted.
With Amadeus and
what
was his third?
I think maybe it was. I took a film class. We studied that once. That movie's wicked. So this is Roger Ebert's top 10, right? Like his estimation of the best, not like the top grossing of. But,
right.
All right, this is fascinating.
Okay, number 5 is Happiness.
Holy shit!
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Oh my
I don't remember that movie.
Oh, that movie is so
title you'll ever hear for a movie.
Really?
That was a Palmer's pick for. I don't know if it was a Palmer's pick of yours, but someone brought it on. Sammy, maybe.
Yeah, I came.
Oh God, that movie's fucked up. Don't watch it, Stan.
The movie is fucked up. Jesus. Fucked up.
Number 4 is A Simple Plan by Sam Raimi.
And the late great Bill Paxton, I think, is in there.
Yes, he is. And Billy Bob Thornton. All right, let's see here. Oh, number 3, Saving Private Ryan.
There we go.
So I remember, like, I saw this probably 6 times in the theater easily. And do you remember too? Like, this is before, really, like, the internet was like wildly, massively popular. And do you remember they created call-in helplines for soldiers experiencing PTSD when they watched that opening scene? I remember that. Yeah, call-in lines.
That first, like, 3 minutes you're saying?
Yeah, because, a lot of veterans that were still alive went and saw it, and they were having, like, it was bringing all of that trauma back up to them. And, like, of course, it's so real. And I remember they created call-in helplines for that, for veterans experiencing PTSD because of watching the first part of Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, and I remember, obviously not a veteran, but just when there's a part of the scene where he gets knocked underwater, and it's quiet, and you're like, oh my god, just be quiet for a little bit. It's just up to that point you've just been punched repeatedly with this sensory overload, and you get knocked underwater, and you're like, okay, I gotta take a breath. Thank you, Steven Spielberg, for letting me breathe for a minute. Well, that which of course did not last long, but yeah,
right.
I could see where that would be an issue.
Yeah, for sure. Also, because we were stupid teenagers, I called it Shaving Ryan's Privates, which I'm not proud of.
I think there actually is a porn called Shaving Private.
Yeah. Are you serious?
Of course, there's porn for everything. I'm sure there is.
2, that's going to be the intro cut. There's porn for everything. Number 2 is Pleasantville. I love this movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I never actually saw that. Movie. I've always meant to, though. I'll have to.
You haven't seen it?
No.
Today, I just have to cut. Today's a fasting day, and I told Ash this was going to happen, but I haven't had anything. I haven't eaten since yesterday. And I was like, I'm going to have a beer or 2 with the guys, and it's going to go right to my fucking head. And it did. So I'm going to switch to seltzer after this. So I'll still burp. I'll still do the microphone. That'll still happen.
Those things aren't required.
Yeah, I'm not going to get toasted. They're Swayze.
They're encouraged, though, to express yourself.
Yeah,
gastronomically, if you feel the need, but they're not required. That was number 2 or number? That
was number 2. All right, let's see what number 1 was. Let's see. Oh, okay.
Oh,
Dark City.
Oh,
nice. Yeah.
I think Robert. I think. What is his name? Roger Ebert. I think he has a commentary track on the Dark City DVD I have.
Really?
Yeah.
He could that to be a masterpiece.
Yep.
Honestly. Yeah.
Director of The Crow, Alex Proyas, and they share a lot of similarities. You can tell that he was working on developing one as he made the other.
Right.
What were you
Dark City is highly underrated.
It is underrated. There's like a trilogy of movies that are like that. Well, maybe it's not a trilogy, but I feel like Dark City, The City of Lost Children, is kind of has that same vibe to me. And what's that third one?
Children of Men.
No, Children of Men is that's so good.
That's such a good movie too.
Yeah, I saw that in the theater with Star. That was intense. That was a great movie.
I'll tell you what, too. That has a great soundtrack. Whoever redid Ruby Tuesday, it's this Italian opera singer guy, and it's like really slowed down and like completely different arrangement. I love it. I love that version. If it give it a listen after this podcast sometime. Ruby Tuesday from the Children of Men soundtrack.
Nice.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a cool list. Thank you for hitting me with that. Stan
the Man is like the greatest podcast hoster on the planet. You're such a politician. You should definitely give that a listen. It's a great one. Good one.
You know what? So just to put a cap on this, so the 2 honorary mentions are The Truman Show, also great, and a movie that I really dig is What Dreams May Come.
Oh shit! We were going through DVDs
Yeah.
this week trying to see if we could get rid of anything, mostly only the Bride stuff, but I considered other things, and that was on there. And I almost I haven't watched it since it came out. Picked it up. I saw it in a theater, but I hadn't thought about that movie in years and years, and I was just thinking about it yesterday. So it's so wild that you say that, and you're a fan of it, right?
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
I'm really fascinated in people's depictions of heaven and hell.
Oh, that hell scares the shit out of me with the dark waters, and I can still remember it way too clearly. And I saw it in 1998.
Yeah. So I'm fascinated by movies that talk about heaven and hell. You know, whether it's movies like Constantine or on and on and on. Like I really love it. And there's
amazing film too. That's talk about underrated gem.
Oh yes, hell yes, Constantine's fantastic. But I just really like it, and I think part of me why, because when people ask me what do I believe in, I literally I don't know. I do not know. Like I don't think that humans really have any idea what this life means, what happens after it does. All we do is speculate. It's from the beginning of time, right? When we think about Greek mythology, well, they were trying to explain the world and explain death, and that's from our ancestors to now. That's what we do. And so I think it's a fascination of mine, just the whole concept of your body versus your consciousness, and does your consciousness live on, and on and on and on. That movie I found really interesting because I think it's a very unique take on the afterlife. And I think it's just a really, really interesting story. And I kind of like that version of it too, like where you kind of get to create your own world. And then if you want to do it again, you can. I that's really appealing to me.
Yeah. Oh man, I'll go dark. I'm really starting to lean towards there's nothing. It's done. Like this is all you get.
Yeah. So yes, I go back and forth between that.
So that means that, but here's the silver lining to that. If that's the way you subscribe, then that tells you I need to leave a legacy. I need to leave the best legacy I possibly can, because otherwise, eventually the last person who knows you is going to die and you'll disappear forever. That's fucking terrifying.
Have you guys seen Coco?
Oh yeah. That's exactly that mentality.
Have you seen that? It's okay. So first of all, that's my favorite Disney Pixar movie, like by far. It makes me cry every time I watch it. Every time. And it's that movie's profound, man. But when you're right. So they put their pictures on the ofrenda, right? And then when the last person stops remembering, you're just gone.
Yeah. Here's a nice little segue. Speaking of Pixar, did you see the still they're doing? I don't know if it's a short or a feature length, but it's Lightyear, and it's a Pixar movie about the astronaut that Buzz Lightyear toy was based on, and Chris Evans plays the astronaut. So
whoa,
yeah. So they released a still of it, and just imagine like Buzz Lightyear as a person animated by Pixar. That's going
to be awesome. My son is a giant Toy Story fan, so it'd be great.
Hope he has America's ass. My favorite moment in that movie, perhaps, where he's like, "That is America's ass," when Captain America says that. Am I making that up? I don't know. Maybe I'm making that up.
And
maybe you're just telling us your deepest, darkest thoughts now.
Oh no, that's right on the tip of my tongue. I'm happy to say it. Oh man. Well, I propose we start to share some of these favorite things of the year, though I welcome all digressions at all times. I thought it was just ping pong. I feel bad starting with Double D. Had to step away, but I'm sure he'll catch up. So I was trying to think where to begin for me, and I'll just choose the one that I'm probably currently the most excited about. And if I had to recommend like one thing right now to everyone, this would be it. And so that would be. Oh, and so I'll just say too quickly, I have mine broken down by like what they are, like TV or podcasts and stuff like that. So, but they don't have to be media. So, and I think some of ours aren't. There's no fucking rules. You'll find I have umbrellas. It's a free for all. So anyway, so this is the one thing I'm still the most excited about, and it's very fresh for me, is Ted Lasso. Have any of you guys seen this show?
No.
Oh, you must.
Not yet, but I've heard a lot of really good things about it.
It is so delightful. So it's about a small-time football coach, played by Jason Sudeikis, and he's hired to coach a professional soccer team in England, even though he has no knowledge of that sport.
On Apple TV, I heard of this.
Yes, it's on Apple TV. It's a very simple premise, and it's like a half-hour, I would say, comedy, but it has so much heart. So, and it's getting a lot of sort of momentum. People are talking about it, and Double D stepped away, but he had suggested to me the podcast Unlocking Us, which is Brene Brown's podcast, and she had Jason Sudeikis and the co-creator on there, Brendan Hunt, and she was like, I'm also the unofficial president of the fan club of Ted Lasso, and she was saying, so I brought that up because she asked a bunch of therapists before she got to talk to them, why they thought like the response has been so positive, and the three things that they came up with are joy, possibility, and goodness, and that is a great sort of thing to have in mind when you think about watching the show. Vanity Fair, there's a Vanity Fair article published just last week called Bring Ted Lasso Energy into Your Life by Maureen Ryan, that starts with the sentence, after a cruel 2020, the humane ideas behind Apple TV's defiantly good-hearted Jason Sudeikis comedy actually feel kind of important. So it's a very unassuming show. He's a very unassuming character. It started from like a series of like TV spots. I think when I might be getting this wrong, but I think like NBC acquired the rights to show soccer in the US or something, and so Jason Sudeikis played this like this folksy character in these TV spots, and then they developed it into this show. But it is the Bride and I are on our second time through, though we haven't watched the finale of season 1 yet. It's been renewed for 1 or 2 more seasons, and it's just so delightful. Like when you first watch it, like the first episode, you have to kind of, you got to give it a couple, maybe 2 or 3. I mean, I have not heard of anyone who's watched it and said anything other than that they love it so much, because it just makes you feel so good. But it feels a little cheesy, maybe, but part of what it does so well is like turn certain stereotypes on their head. Like you think it's going to be one thing. Like it feels a lot like Major League at the beginning, the movie. If I'm remembering that correctly, it's like they want to purposely have a bad team. The owner does, or am I making that up?
Yeah, so they have an excuse to sell the team to move to Florida.
Yes, there's a similar vibe like that, where the owner of the team is in a nasty divorce, and she wants to tank the team to spite her ex-husband, and so she brings in this like hapless American guy who's just like, oh shucks, like Midwestern dude, but starting there, it's just like all the sort of stereotypes are fall by the wayside, and it's just consistently, I think they're half-hour episodes. Yeah, I'll just come back to that. It's the joy, possibility, and goodness. It's so great. My heart just swells talking about it.
Question, like a very specific question about it, not like about the plot or anything else, but one of the things I've read that made me add it, and I want to start watching it. I'm still trying to work through Westworld, but anyway, this is the comment that got me interested. This show is the antidote to toxic masculinity.
Oh, no,
I can see that. Yeah.
So I'm curious, just throwing that sentence out to you, do you feel like that allows like you to be masculine and not have all of this ridiculousness? And as I speak that as someone who watches football every Sunday and sees the ridiculousness associated with it.
Yeah, that idea resonates a lot. Like, and it seems very obvious, but it's not heavy-handed, I would say. I mean, that never occurred to me, that phrase, but yeah, there's a lot of vulnerability in it. There's a lot of personal accountability, like when you fuck up, like and like those are story points, you know, and yeah, there's a lot of, it's weird because in this interview with Brene Brown, who she does, I think most of her research is about vulnerability, but Jason Sudeikis and Brendan Hunt like threw out some names as though they were referencing sort of, I'm going to say like modern philosophers. I don't know if that's true or if they're just like sort of, you know, nonfiction writer thinker type, you know, self-help folks, but or if perhaps they're old philosophers I never heard of. But there's definitely some ideas at play, but the creative execution of it it rewards repeat viewing just for how it feels to watch it, but also like it's really like tightly compacted, and there's always like things going on, and it is obviously a very thoughtful show, but it plays like pure fluff. And yeah, I can't recommend it enough. A little sidebar is, so one of the things about the toxic masculinity is like there's a really angry player who is like, maybe he's close to retirement age for a footballer, and then there's like a really cocky young player, and then there's this dynamic that plays out between them. But the really angry older player, he's played by an actor called Brett Goldstein, who's also involved in like the creative of the show, and so his character Roy Kent is just like fuck off kind of guy, like it's just yelling at everyone, really tough. But he has the thing like where he will say like he's sorry and kind of show the little, like he seems like he's going to be he would be the guy that could never admit that he's wrong, but he is the one who can, from like that dichotomy. So that's kind of what I mean, where like it plays against stereotypes but in unexpected and layered ways. Like for instance, that never occurred to me, that about Roy. But my little side note is that, so the guy Brett Goldstein who plays Roy Kent has a podcast called Films to Be Buried With. So this is not related to Ted Lasso, other than he's on Ted Lasso. It's just a little side note. And the premise of that is each week he invites over a guest, he tells them that they've died, and then he gets them to discuss their life through the films that meant the most to them. And that's a tie for those two things for me about which one is my favorite right now. Because they both, and he carries that same energy. He plays that surly guy in the show, but he's such a lovely dude. The show makes me cry sometimes just for the sweetness of like how he treats people. And they're talking about their lives through movies. Oh, it's fucking great. So that's my first sort of umbrella one.
What was the name of the podcast again?
Films to Be Buried With. So the idea is like you're in heaven and they're like, or you died. So like when you look back at your life, what was your favorite, or what was the movie that scared you the most? What was the sexiest film for you? It's hard for me not to talk like him because I do all the time right now to the bride. Each week I invite a special guest over. I tell them they died, and then I let them discuss their life through the films that meant the most to them. Anyway, I recommend those things. So get an Apple Plus subscription trial. It's like a week for free, and then it's only $5 after that. I'm literally paying for it just to rewatch Ted Lasso, maybe over and over again forever. But
$5?
Yeah, that's the monthly fee for Apple TV. But you can get a free trial and watch it on that.
What else is I'm curious. In addition, all of this is intriguing, so I'm sold on this show. But also, can you like describe the additional features of Apple TV? Do you feel like it's a worthwhile streaming service?
I actually do. I like it a lot because it syncs your iTunes library, and it presents your iTunes library like Netflix would present, all Netflix has to offer. Everything that you've ever bought on iTunes movie-wise or TV-wise shows up like that. So it's not like you can browse stuff, but for me, like I've only bought like a handful of things that I couldn't get through other means. So part of me, even though I have those things, I could bring them up on Apple TV, not Apple TV Plus, just like kind of screen mirror or whatever. Part of me wants to keep the service just to be able to navigate to it, to those things through the app. So I really like the app. It is tied to an Apple ID, so you can't share it with other people. which for some reason I kind of like as well. But yeah,
well,
I
unless
like
you do
it.
family on your Apple ID, so I'd be able to share it with Ash.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah.
Family thing set up.
I think of Twinkie often when I think about Apple TV because isn't that where you buy the cheap stuff on iTunes? You're like, don't ask why, just buy.
It's funny you bring that up because number 5 on my list of things I'm grateful for in 2020 is the $4.99 iTunes deals.
Yeah.
Most recently, I just picked up Hunt for Red October. God rest Sean Connery.
Sean Connery.
And have enjoyed the hell out of that. So yes, it really is. It's on my list it's number 4 of iTunes $4.99 deals. I know in a world of streaming,
Another stream.
we don't really need to buy things anymore, but occasionally I'm just like, yeah, but out of principle, I want to own this movie. Like if I'm going to say I like movies, I should have to own this. So,
Yeah.
But if it's digitally, do you really own it?
well, yeah, that's to be determined.
Notorious for you losing stuff that you quote unquote bought,
Yeah.
and then Amazon sells off the rights and you don't own it anymore. So,
Right.
But yeah, so yeah, for sure.
I
Just hang in there. You never know what's going to come around for $4.99, and you're just like, out of principle, I have to purchase this.
Well, and it would show up in your Apple Plus library, and you can navigate to it just like a streaming service.
Exactly, and then you'll be like me. You'll be like, okay, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to watch this thing, and then your library will pop up, and Mad Max Fury Road will pop up, and an hour later, you're watching Charlize Theron beat the shit out of idiots in the post.
Do you consume any of the other Mad Max movies with this amount of fever, or is
occasionally? So I will watch Road Warrior. The other two, I admit to being a little more challenged by.
Yeah.
Fury Road is. I've talked about this at length. I'm not going to talk about it too much here. I will just say that it takes action movies and it changes the game.
Yeah.
It makes it about ideas that have not been discussed in action movies before.
Yeah.
So, side note, the place where I got my tattoos is called Sweet Baby Octane, and an homage to Mad Max.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, it's. I mean, it is action movie blood mixed with ideas that would challenge even probably the most progressive person. But anyway, hey, we're like an hour and 15 minutes in, and I got one of my top 10s out there.
Very nice.
Like long walk, short drink. Perfect.
Always 40 minutes from where we want to be.
Yeah,
There it is.
that's what I love about it.
Stan the Man, you want to get one out? One of your top 10 out?
Well, I would love to get one of my top 10 out.
I just got to say, with the red hat, I don't know why, but you've got this really Yukon Cornelius vibe going on. Standing man, I love it.
I love it.
Have you seen his Facebook post about this very topic?
No, I swear I haven't.
He posted this meme that said, "Why does every leftist chick's lover look like Cornelius from Rudolph?" And like the first comment was me, and I said, "What do you mean?" And I posted this picture of myself from last week, and like my beard was washed, so it's like out to here when it's all done. My mustache is all curled, and I have a beanie on with like my mask is hanging from my ear, but it looks like the long like hat, and I'm smiling, and it looks exactly like it. I mean,
all right,
yeah.
I'm going for it now. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, check it out. Check it out. I will see. I want to see a reaction on that in real time.
Oh my gosh! Oh,
I think I misunderstood the top 10 list, but we'll just kind of wing it. I thought it was like top 10 things that happened to you this year, but that wasn't it at all.
That sounds legit.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with my top 10 show for 2020. I mean, I know we literally just did that, but for me, it was Mad Men again for the third time.
Nice.
I watched it all again, and I can't wait to watch it again. It's so good. It's so good. So for me, it was Mad Men again. But my bring this back. Yeah, it is. Well, how about that? Well, bringing it back to the what we were talking about a little bit ago. If we're talking new shows, Amazon had a show this year called Good Omens, and it was it's about Armageddon, but it's this sort of like dark comedy, and it's interesting. It sort of takes you through, follows these angels and this demon through like the Garden of Eden all the way to present day and the rise of this like kid Antichrist, and they both love living in the world so much. They are both working against their Gabriel and the other angels to try to stop it from happening. But Don Draper plays the Archangel Gabriel in Good Omens as well. So it all connects in the great circle of life.
Very nice.
For me, Gabriel is played by the Christopher Walken. In the Prophecy. Ow!
Chris Walken.
We got to talk Prophecy someday. Stan, I'm curious. Have you seen that movie based on what you described enjoying about heaven and hell and that show?
Which movie is it?
It's called The Prophecy, 1995. I think.
I know exactly what you're talking about, but I have not seen that.
Oh, you must. You will love it. You will love it.
We're going to need a Prophecy episode because that's
Yeah, that would be good.
All right.
Twinkie, wasn't that something you wanted to discuss at some point, or am I putting that in the wrong
no, I'm happy. Let's do some Prophecy. Let's even go like Prophecy, 2 and 3?
I've never seen those, but
progressively less quality, I would assume, but hey.
I think it's like Prophecy 5 or 6, actually.
Oh.
It's ridiculous. Like, hang on. Let me look.
Well, Stan the Man, my wife is a huge Neil Gaiman fan. So,
yes. He's wonderful. Yeah.
So
actually,
Dark Omens, of course, is his stuff. And then there's, American Gods? I think it's on Showtime, which we don't have. But at some point may break down and get just to watch American Gods.
It's interesting. The books are much better. But the show is interesting. It's worth a watch for sure. Yeah, Palmer, I think you turned me on to Neil Gaiman, right? Didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, the Sandman series alone is worth it, and then is worth investing in Neil Gaiman. And then he did a really good Superman story. I think it's like, I forget what it's called, but or maybe Batman. He did a really good. One of those characters, like take on one of those characters. But American Gods is easily one of the best novels, like of pieces of fiction that I've read. And if you do it on audio, it's read by the great George Guidall. So he does a fantastic job reading that. But I also recommend the Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman.
I know that one. I wrote a song adapting that. I liked it so much. And Neil Gaiman reads that audiobook. That's
and the audiobook is him like reading it to a live audience. It's fantastic. So the Graveyard Book is really good. And but I definitely want to check out this Bad Omens. I've heard this is like the 7th time it's like come to me that it's a fantastic.
I enjoyed it. It's only 6 episodes. It's like a short miniseries. I enjoyed the hell out of it. It was fantastic.
Awesome.
Dave just mentioned, music. I do have a top 10 in music. Do we want to keep going around though, since I just went and saved that?
Yeah, put a pin on that. Let's ping pong around and try to do I don't know how people appear on the screen, but we haven't heard from Double D at all yet. Double D, hit us with I don't know, one of your things.
No, I'll just pop in, and this is one that I talked to Palmer about, but Ricky Gervais Netflix series Afterlife, and came out with a second series or a second season. Oh my gosh, this thing is just crazy. I'm a big Ricky Gervais fan. Like his stand-up a lot. He's got a couple of good stand-up routines and stuff like that on Netflix. One is just terrific. And then, but yeah, this Afterlife, it is just so powerful. I mean, like ugly cry and then just like pee your pants laughing all in one episode.
Now, Double D wasn't around for our discussion of the Afterlife, and he is now just mentioning it. Everything is simpatico tonight.
Yeah. It's the way it usually works on this show. I like that.
So after talking with Palmer, he turned me on to Derek, which we're only a couple episodes in, but
Are you liking that so far?
Yeah, liking that so far too.
Ash and I absolutely love that. So we have to check out Afterlife because it sounds like they kind of run along in the
Oh
same
my gosh.
a little bit. So
It's like, I'm telling you, I don't know who was talking about it coming in late, but holy cow, it is like, just be ready. Like, it will just kick you right in the nuts. But oh my, it's just so powerful. It's such a good show.
And speaking of simpatico, Brett Goldstein, who I was talking about, Films to Be Buried with, Ted Lasso, he plays a character called Tom in Derek, which I haven't seen, but maybe you guys would know. That's who that is. The surly soccer player is Tom and Derek. I don't know if that means anything to you, but
Gotcha.
Well, Derek is just this little, like, I don't even think they continued the series, but it's just so good. Really, it's same thing. Piss your pants in the one episode and be crying your eyes out in the same one. So, really worth checking out.
It's like an Adam Sandler thing, though. Like, there's a lot of the same cast in both of those series. It's terrific.
He definitely collects people and will bring them along for the ride on his projects, which is
creepy.
Nice.
So. Yeah. I just watched Mr. Deeds like 2 nights ago. I don't know why the Adam Sandler thing just sparked that. Falling asleep on me when we were watching, I don't know, a stand-up comedy person. And so she was out. So it was like, I don't know, midnight or whatever when the comedy routine was done. And I was just like, click. Because I saw it came out on Netflix. So I was like, yeah, let's try this. And so it was like 1:40 in the morning or whatever when we finally shut it down. But I was like, oh my gosh, because I was thinking like, oh man, I need to watch this with my kids. And then I was like, nah, not quite yet.
Isn't Mr. Deeds the one where he has like his foot is like
Blackfoot? Yeah.
Blackfoot, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Winona Ryder.
Yeah. The butler is just the best.
Oh, very sneaky.
Like always there. Yeah, always there.
Very sneaky, sir. I think you're underestimating my sneakiness, sir. It's very good. Yeah, and then we just started in on this whole I guess there's a show out. You guys, I don't know, it's kind of, you may not have heard of it. It's called Schitt's Creek.
Oh yeah.
So we just started to get into that. That's kind of our little guilty pleasure because they're short little episodes, so we can burn through a few of those.
That show is really good.
Oh my gosh, so funny.
Yeah.
Just
so that talking about shows, that'll cut to my first one. One of the things that Ash and I did this year that we have been putting off because it's so awkward, and talking about Ricky Gervais, simpatico, Jesus Christ, we finally went through the American version of The Office completely. And seasons of that in about 2 months. We just like burned through it. Wow. It was they're only 20-minute long episodes, to be fair.
Even Scott's Tots?
Oh, that one I kept my nose buried in my phone. So we really had never made it past the second season, and that's just because it makes us so socially uncomfortable to like we couldn't do it. And season 3 is really where they started to give Michael Scott some redeemable qualities. And so once we got there, it really was kind of a breeze. But man, what a fantastic show. And just like the like Pam and Jim love story was just done so well, and just like constantly reaffirming their love in a realistic way that didn't seem like, I don't know. It was very relatable. Very relatable.
Yeah. You know what? You're right. People forget how awkward, especially that first season of The Office is.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh my gosh.
It's almost a direct lift of the British version of The Office, which Ricky Gervais plays that character as well as like was the creator of the show. And he plays that character as biting. Like it's I know I'm this way and I don't care that I'm this way. And it works for his interpretation of the character. But Steve Carell was just like this buffoon who was also that biting. And I think when they really started to focus on these are the people he cares about the most, and he would die for them. Like there was never once they established that, there's never any question of that he would literally do anything he had to for those people. So that really helped us get through to that part. And then by season 4 and 5, you're just so invested in everyone there. That was another thing I think that really, like, there was change. Like, Steve Carell leaves at one point, like leaves the show, and that really was kind of like the downfall of it, I feel like. But the core contingent of people there just stayed the same, which was great. Like the woman that played Meredith Palmer and Stanley and all of those people. Creed like meant so much. Mose is only in like 5 episodes. Like the fucking fantastic. Like so that's what really for me really sold it, was that like the character actors staying the same the entire time was really good. So that would be the first one on my list, I think, that I would cover, since and it just worked with what we were talking about, would be The Office.
So. Do you have a favorite episode?
Oh man, so I really like the episode when Pam and Jim go to stay at the beet farm when he starts the Airbnb. It's surreal. It's like it's just as surreal for you, because the whole dynamic of Jim and Dwight is eroded, because now it's a business thing, right? And so it's worthwhile for him to be nice to Jim. So you're put off guard just as much as they are, because it's against that dynamic that the show has built up that entire time. That one would definitely be up there. I just absolutely love so many things about that episode. Are so good. Most like in the corner when because he has to carry the bags up, but he's hiding behind the grandfather clock so he doesn't like seem like he's there. And like they pull up in the car, and he like runs by the car, and he's like looking at them while he's running, and then like veers off into the field. Oh,
for some reason that is insanely funny to me. The running, he ran away in another episode. I think like when people run away, I find that really funny. Like grown ass people running away is one. It might be the thing I find most consistently funny, and especially if it's like on a dime. And Mose is great at that.
There's another episode too when they're having some event at the farm, and he's the valet to drive, like to park the car, and he like ramps the car, like jumps in the cornfield. Oh man, so fit. Mose was such a one of my favorite characters for sure.
Well, he's the dude that created The Good Place, right? Michael Schur. I believe the guy that plays Mose is part of the creative team of The Office, but I believe he's the creator of The Good Place.
Oh, really?
Which is a great show.
Yeah, that is a fantastic. Talk about life and death. That's a fantastic show that explores some great philosophy with that. So, if you have not seen The Good Place, dude, it's totally worth checking out.
I have not seen it.
Oh man, you have no idea. Oh, it's so good. They're not allowed to swear, so they just what the fork? It's so fantastic.
It takes place in heaven, and yeah, that's The Good Place. I don't know. That's all I'll say for now.
All right.
It's very worthwhile.
Just a quick aside. I think my favorite Office episode is the marathon nipples.
Yeah. He eats the fettuccine.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so gross.
I know. Oh, so good.
I'm so glad that you finally watched that and could enjoy enjoy it you hear about.
Yeah. Well, and now I'm in on all the jokes. I get them now, so which is nice. So,
did you watch Parks and Rec?
Different people.
We have not watched Parks and Rec yet. No.
Oh man, I love Parks and Rec.
Yeah, that's worthwhile too.
Yeah.
Twinkie, what's your next one?
Okay, so the next one is for me is media, but it's very personal media, and it's actually academic media, which is weird. But it's called something that I discovered actually earlier this year. So I think or maybe even the end of next year, but I signed up for this year, and it's called The Journal of Amish and Plain Anabaptist Studies. And briefly, for all of you who may not know my background, for all of you wonderful Long Walk Short Drink listeners, I grew up in a church that was basically like a Mennonite light, or mechanized Amish, if you will. And so this is a professor who he's based out of, I believe it's the University of Akron now. It originally was Ohio State University. But basically has an academic journal that publishes twice a year, and it studies inside the United States, primarily plain Anabaptist groups and Amish people, of which the church that I grew up in is one of the groups that is studied. Disclaimer, I hold none of the beliefs of the church that I grew up in.
Talk about episodes we need to do. That we've been teasing doing this episode since you came on the first time.
Well, this might be an opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
I discovered this journal because they published a paper specifically about the church that I grew up in, and then ended up subscribing. I think it's like $50 a year. And they study all kinds of topics, to like very, very topical things like, for example, COVID testing within the Amish community, to more, academic topics of, I don't know, gender fluidity within the Amish community or whatever. So, things that may not.
Not a phrase I thought I'd hear today.
Yeah, right. Yes. But it is something I find completely fascinating and helpful, because part of my journey, I think, is wrestling with all of these things that I grew up with that are still a part of me. I'm not really interested in getting rid of them or pretending like they didn't happen or anything like that, but how they shape who I am going forward. As a very progressive person, I don't share a lot of the beliefs that I grew up with, but some of the things that I carry with me, whether it's maybe somewhat awkward honesty sometimes, or maybe a sense of compassion when other people don't necessarily have that for people, because growing up in a pacifist church, there's some of those things still affect me. So finding this was like, someone with a PhD who has some insight into some of these things and can shed a little different light and look at things from a different angle has been really enlightening and therapeutic and terrifying at times, but really cool. And I look forward to every time they publish. They just published a couple weeks ago, and it takes a commitment to read a couple of those articles. They're papers written by academics, and so they're challenging for me to read sometimes. But that's been a really great experience, and I will leverage that in my Long Walk Short Drink episode for sure. So,
what was the name of the publication again?
Yeah, so the shorthand is JAPAS, and even if you Google that, but it's the Journal of Amish and Plain Anabaptist Studies.
Yeah, and it is in association with the University of Akron, or collaboration with.
Well, that's where I think he's based out of now. It was originally based out of Ohio State University, because Ohio State University had a rural studies program, and it kind of fell underneath that. I believe, I would love to interview this man. I believe the guy with a PhD is still a member of like a plain Anabaptist church. Like, he looks, he's bearded, he wears plain clothes, he has all of the personal commitments regarding, what you would see from maybe like a Mennonite, like a conservative Mennonite, if that means anything to people, but yet has a PhD and studies all of this broad range of people. And I find that completely fascinating. I would love to like probe the mind of this individual, but it's a lot of this stuff is behind a paywall. You know, you can't necessarily read this stuff unless you're signed up, which is unfortunate. But when I do get a chance to sit down and read about gender roles in the Amish community, it is something I find enjoyable. And I watch, like, hey, I tell my wife, you know, I just read this great article, and then her eyes start to glaze over.
Aww.
Which is totally fine. It's boring to most people, but it is very meaningful to me. And it was a great find. I'm excited to support something like that.
Maybe we could bring him on as a guest if we do the apostolic episode.
Oh man, I would totally be the contact for that and try to make that happen. I would love to have that discussion with like my emotional kind of, you know, very relational view, to have someone with a more removed and academic view would be, and then to hear, you know, Dave and Palmer and whoever else that has seen it from a
Layman perspective.
Yeah. You know, you grew up with people, you've been to the church like 1 or 2 times, probably for special events, maybe. And to hear those kind of 2 things bounce off each other, or 3 things with your perspective, would be a delight.
Yeah, no, I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
I think one of the times I've been to the church was for your baptism, actually.
Hey, did you go when I left?
I did not go when you left. Is there actually a ceremony that happens? Like, you didn't go either. Yes, thank goodness. You left.
I was like, I was so into that. Like, there's a an entrance and an exit ceremony.
Yeah.
So you were just pulling
I would have been a part of that for sure.
Spoilers: there is an exit ceremony, but we'll save that.
Yeah,
Long walk.
Wow.
Oh, you got to make this happen. We need to know. I need to know. Whoa!
Yeah, I was so troubled. Actually, I wanted to be there and be supportive, but the amount of you're like, the old you is dying. Like, we're drowning the old you, and the new you who's like subservient and like all that is like, I'm like, I don't want my friend to die. Like, I get that. I understand he's making a commitment. I get that, but like, he shouldn't have to die to do that. That's bullshit. It really pissed me off.
Turns out it didn't really work out. So,
well, yeah. I don't want to say thankfully, but because I'm sure that was a very difficult decision for you. But I am grateful that I get to spend time with you, even in this capacity, where I don't think that opportunity would have been there.
well, I mean, it shaped me. It shaped me. We start there and we say it shaped me in some good ways. I try to the wrestling match I have with this, and that this has helped me with, is identifying the positives that I can use in my life and interacting with people, and also pushing aside and acknowledging and dealing with the very obvious negatives. So, and we all have those things. It's just mine is in the context of a weird ass fundamentalist / evangelical / Anabaptist church thing.
I have a similar background growing up to that, so I would love to be on that episode too. Yeah, I refer to my church as the cult church.
Well, you're locked in. So
there we go.
Suddenly, this is all I want to hear about. But maybe this PhD person would be a great guide through.
Yeah.
Well, also, I would love for the two of you to be able to lead, to ask the questions you would want to know most about. Boy, I wonder if you could talk someone like that, though, into coming on a program like this.
I think so. I really do. I think, honestly, if you just lay it out and say, hey, this is the concept, I would honestly be very clear to them about what they're getting into. But I have no doubt that they would be interested in doing it. I really don't.
I think that would be great.
I can be respectful too. I don't have to swear.
I think you could just be you.
Yeah.
Because you're not disrespectful. I think you just ask very clear questions and 100% be Palmer, and it'd be totally fine. There's no reason to change anything. I think you just want them to let them know what their role is in the discussion, and that's it.
Yeah, no, and I think that would be, Oh man, especially if both of you feel like you might be able to gain some kind of insight to what you've dealt with as a result of the impact of this. So, I think that would be a fascinating conversation that I would love to be a part of, and honored to be a part of if you'd be willing to go, because I'm sure there's going to be a pretty large emotional investment involved in that conversation. So to be the privilege of being a part of that would be huge for sure. But man, that would be fascinating to me. Absolutely fascinating.
I really believe, because I come from that background, that given the opportunity to just share and talk about stuff, especially someone who's in academia, who that's their job to make those discussions more, to create awareness for that. I have no doubt, especially when you come from, when they know, this person so I became aware of this because this person, his name is Corey Anderson, did a specific study for multiple years of the church, the denomination I grew up in. So he visited their congregations. He spoke with attendees and, ministers and whatever people who control things, elder people. And so has some level of passion for it and understanding about it, and that's shown commitment to it. So I have no doubt that there'd be an interest.
Oh, no, I'm so excited to be a part of that conversation, just to listen to that conversation happening even.
Yeah, we'll follow up offline and
absolutely
get some dates and put something together.
That sounds great. Thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Hit us with another one.
Yeah. So let's see. Next on my list we'll do is Mandalorian on Disney Plus.
Good choice.
My God.
I'm like 3 episodes behind though on the current season, and I've heard they're like 3 amazing episodes. So
I certainly won't discuss anything regarding plot or anything like that, but I will just say, as just a fan, just like in general of Star Wars, what I've come to acknowledge is that, at least for a while here, Disney has excelled at creating smaller stories and kind of vignettes and looks into the universe. I maybe didn't attach myself as well to some of the major theatrical stories. I enjoyed them. They're fine. They're wonderful. But Mandalorian, for whatever, just really scratches an itch that I just really appreciate in how they're telling the story. It varies from episode to episode, of course, and different directors, and how it has been able to, in just its own way, in like a 20-minute episode, change the way I viewed entire movies in the Star Wars universe. Just with a little bit of backfill and a little bit of clarification, really made me appreciate various movies in their entirety. So that series for me has been a real highlight of the year. Have any of you watched it? I know Palmer said he started season 2.
Yeah, I'm a little behind on season 2, but it is I cannot disagree with that sentiment at all. I feel like it pings something that even the sequel trilogy just did not, even having like all that nostalgia just crammed in by a board of people, and Rise of the Skywalker even doesn't ping it the same way that this show does for me.
It feels Star Wars to me, maybe a little bit more than those did.
Yeah.
Just like, it's a TV show, so there's some production like shortcuts and
Sure.
I don't know. I mean, my love of Mandalorian isn't meant to disparage the other things. It's just, it feels like I'm experiencing that universe again with all its bumps and warts and whatever else.
Yep.
So I know Dave had maybe mentioned that you'd watch season 1, but it wasn't 100% like meshing with you a little bit. Is that accurate? I'd be curious to see if if you did start season 2, if that would be something that would change, because season 2 is, I wouldn't say a dramatic departure in quality or story, but it is, each episode definitely carries a little more weight to it than season 1 did.
Yeah, I've started I'm trying to think if it's 3 or 4 episodes in.
Oh, okay.
And there's some things brought up that I'm curious about. I really think what it is for me is I can't have these masked figures. Judge Dredd, I never made it through. I just can't do that. There's no connection there for me.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, and so I don't want to spoil anything or have anything spoiled, but I have sort of some hopes about that. But
It's like me in live action.
yeah, but I can also appreciate the things, the kind of throwback quality to it, and I don't know. It doesn't click for me as well as I remember Palmer really thought it would, like the Western thing. I don't know why. I insert the character of Martin Blank from Grosse Pointe Blank, John Cusack's Hitman character, into the Mandalorian suit because the voice is similar, and that really helps me.
Yeah, but I think it's certainly nostalgic. Like, and as none of you have kind of caught up with the latest episodes. As you get there, maybe if you think back to my comments, it might make just a bit more sense, because they're definitely like deep diving into the nostalgia well. So there is a little bit of fan service in the latest episode. I haven't watched, of course, tonight's episode, but I think it's 14 or 15. I don't remember now.
Oh yeah,
it's
they
just
did the
like,
chapters. Yeah, I forgot.
have you seen the original Star Wars trilogies? Then you will enjoy this episode of The Mandalorian. Like that kind of thing. So.
That's great.
It's made me excited for the other stuff. A lot too. The Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan show. Like, I'm really excited.
That's gonna be great
to see this style of storytelling done with those characters. I heard announced today that Hayden Christensen will be reprising the role as Darth Vader for that show.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Which for some reason, like, I got goosebumps when I read that. Like, that made
Stanley did not.
Yeah, look at Stanley.
You underestimate my power.
Well, I will say this. One of my coworkers
Turned against me.
the sentiment that Stan is kind of saying right now, and I will say that I lay a lot of the acting at the feet of one Mr. George Lucas's direction and screenwriting, and again, I mean, God love George Lucas, like I do, but given an opportunity to see some of those people reprise those roles with a little bit of a different perspective,
Yeah,
I feel like the result might be slightly different.
Yeah.
I agree. By the way, one of the funniest memes to this day that I laugh at constantly when I think about it is someone asked a question: if you could put the word "fuck" into any line in any of the Star Wars movies, just one, where would you put it?
Oh.
And the person, the picture with Obi-Wan saying, "Fuck you, Anakin, I have the high ground."
See, I thought when they inserted the no, when he was like, no, when he realized he's Darth Vader, be like, fuck. I'll be there for that. That's a tweak I get on board with. I actually like Hayden Christensen in those movies. I accept the limitations of the direction and stuff, because I remember that from the first one where George Lucas was talking about like when Anakin left his mother and stuff, and how he had more emotional takes, but he was going for a thing or had committed to a certain convention. And I was fascinated by that idea. I don't think it works very well, obviously, but yeah, within the context of it, I actually like Hayden Christensen, so I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, it turns out you can still like Star Wars and also recognize that there's some limitations to some of the production and directing and writing. Like, all those things are okay. It's okay to realize that it's a little bit of a gray area sometimes.
Yeah, well, after all, only Siths see things in black and white.
Oh, very nice.
I'm in.
Well, in order to keep, make sure we get all yours. I'm not sure how I'll tee them up like throughout.
I got two more real serious ones. The first one is people, humans. 2020 has revealed to me, I guess, just like how much I value decent and kind. Like, even if I don't agree with them, people. But wow, has 2020 shown us a lot about who we all are, or at least for me. Coworkers who I thought I was like, yeah, I'm pretty cool with this person. Whoa. No, thank you. Please, let's not take breaks together, and we will talk about only work things from now on.
Yeah.
But also on the flip side of that, really decent human beings revealing themselves has also been enlightening and enjoyable and heartwarming and all of those things. So that defined 2020 for me a lot, is both people in my life and then also just people in general. You know, like my phone would light up with a text from the Long Walk Short Drink crew. It would just be like a lot of days, like an oasis in a desert of just shit people. And that was really great to experience. So
nothing worse than shit people.
Man, it's like, it's okay that you and I disagree on things. I get it. Like, I don't even need people to agree with me on things, but you don't have to be like a shit person about it. And there was just a lot of that, and I'm kind of over that.
It's hard enough.
Yeah.
Why do you need to make it harder? I don't understand it.
I mean, if we tried hard enough right now with all five of us, we could find a lot of things we don't agree on. But like, why?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't need any more of that. What I need is people to be like, things are tough. You and I, whatever, let's work together to get through this. That's what I need right now. Mentally, physically, emotionally, I need people who are like, let's do this together. And shout out to the people who are like that, 100%.
Hear, hear.
Good call.
I'm going to jump right to my last thing, and it's a video game. As you, many of you know, video games are my kind of media of choice. Enjoy movies and TV shows and whatever, but given a chance to sit down and just enjoy narrative experiences that I can be involved in. And the highlight of that was a game called The Last of Us Part 2 this year. High level, it's like a post-apocalyptic game, right? And it would fit a lot of the tropes of many post-apocalyptic games. But when you get underneath it, you're dealing with characters who are struggling with sexual identities and dealing with characters who are wrestling with what it means to stay a human and what it means to relate to others in a world that is unrelatable. And I felt that more than ever this year, I guess. It also involves a narrative theme around a Pearl Jam song, right? Called, I didn't look this up, I think it's Future Day or Future Days.
Yeah.
Future Days, which was just performed by Eddie Vedder on a kind of game awards show.
Oh, I was so confused by that announcement. That's awesome.
Yeah, and so the game is narratively woven into a Pearl Jam song, which was enough of a draw for me. It just, again, kind of like, if I can relate it to Mad Max Fury Road, it's this game that turns things on its head, and it takes these kind of tropes and it's trans characters wrestling with their sexual identity in this world. And it's people who appear, of course, to be on the side of right, who may not, of course, be that way. And maybe some things that we're used to seeing. But
the first one changed me. That's like the first one was so impactful.
Yes. The second one will do more of the same, for sure. Yeah, it's of course, The Last of Us is a game that was released 7 or 8 years ago, and this was a sequel. And it's a journey of it's a journey of people. You know, it's not a hack and slash, shoot everybody. You know, it's about dealing with how do you retain your humanity in a world which isn't interested in any of those things.
If you break out Rocky Mountain AM, I would love to see you stream that. Just for the sense that I have given up, I think, on those games. I can't. This is something I've been talking to Dave about, that I have consumed my entire life, and I am kind of trying to get a handle on that consumption so that I can create with the life that I have left, because I don't think I have done enough of that. And I think those, like we have briefly talked about, like Cyberpunk, you know, I just don't have time for that game.
Right.
It looks fantastic. I am thoroughly sure I would enjoy it. But with what I want to do right now with my life, I just can't I would get too invested in it.
Yeah, for sure. I will say this about The Last of Us. So there's I'm into this game. It's probably 30 to 40 hours, right? It's a significant investment in time. There's a scene at the end where you have to re-engage what could be considered an antagonist, but is also a protagonist. I mean, and I just didn't want to do it. I was like, I'm tired of this violence. You know, it resonated with me, and it's not just this endless, you know, video games kind of, you know, it's like Doom, right? You're just going around and blowing up, and those games have their place, right? But this isn't about that. This is about how endless violence does affect a person. And if you were set in a world where it's die, you know, kill or be killed, how does that really get to you? I mean, how many people would it take for you to kill before you realize you're killing humans? You know, like,
right.
What impact does that have on a person of actually taking another person's life? And maybe the game resonates with me just because I'm getting older, right? And I mean, I'm only 40. I'm not at death's door completely, but some days. But you know, you do kind of see, like, yeah, okay, like I don't necessarily have all of this youth behind me, or I mean, in front of me. It's a lot of it is behind me, and so probably the idea of ending someone's life maybe feels differently than it did even 10 years ago, even in this fake world of video games, which I find interesting that I've had that change. So yeah, Last of Us Part 2, if you ever sit down and feel like playing a video game, I think does a good job of being a video game and having video gamey things, but also talking to you as a person with, you know, put yourself in these shoes, and how would you deal with it? What would you say? How would you handle the situation?
Nice.
Twinkie, can you, so as someone whose last like intensive video game play was in the early 90s with like Mario 1 or some shit, maybe 3.
Yeah.
I have a vague notion, and I've watched some of your Twitch and stuff of modern games, but I still can't even imagine like how the issues that you brought up, like the trans character and how that unfolds, or the agonizing overtaking a life. Can you tell folks like me, like, who can't grasp that, like how the video game framework like contains that, and how those things sort of unfold throughout the gameplay?
Yeah, so like for example, in this one, you play a defined character. Whereas in many video games, you are a Halo, right? You are this somewhat nondescript Marine in a mask, right? And you don't have like a defined backstory or a personality. Well, in this game, I mean, without spoil, it's a fairly recent game, so I would never spoil it for anybody. But you play people with a set backstory, and things unfold somewhat cinematically, in the sense that there are sequences where you are playing as this character in a world, and you are finding ways to either sneak around or kill or whatever to achieve your goals. But the story also has cinematic moments where cutscenes or whatever that also deal with those things, and help flesh that out. Now, there are also things within the moments where you are physically playing the game that help you with that backstory as well, whether you're having conversations with people or seeing how they act or don't act in specific circumstances. These games involve designers and writers and and teams of hundreds of people, and they cost hundreds of millions of dollars to make, and that require years of investment. So they are significantly different from maybe some of the games that we grew up playing, which were considered kids' toys, if you will. They rival a Hollywood story in some degree in how they're made and how they look. The best way to get a feel for that really is to, if you go to Twitch, or you just even go to YouTube and can watch some of those things, you get a feel for how that plays out.
I have a link to the trailer that we can drop in. That might be a nice way to wrap up Twinkie before he goes out of here. But just to even piggyback on what he's saying, like, this developer particularly is kind of known for making cinematic games. I would even argue the first one, this one probably follows that. They are almost interactive movies in a sense that the Uncharted series, the characters, that's the first game that you seriously empathize, in my opinion, like you genuinely feel for these characters the same way you would in a movie that you were watching, and you have the ability to control them in some sense. This developer is kind of known for that quality of game. It's not even just like they're A-list games. It is games elevated almost to an art form that this developer is known for. But I feel like this trailer that I'm about to drop in, it's very important to stress that the quality of animation that you're about to see in this trailer is the game. So it's very, there was a period with gaming where the cutscenes or the cinematic elements of the game would be a much higher quality of resolution and graphic compared to what the actual gameplay would be. This developer also is notorious for the seamless integration between the cinematic moments and the game control moments. So those two things just ebb and flow very, very well in the games that this developer creates. So let me drop this in and we can get this queued up. And I have it queued up already. But if I apologize for the dogs in the background. So on 3 and 3.
So it's a really cool YouTube clip, but it really doesn't lend itself to being listened to. So if you go to the Long Walk Short Drink YouTube page, just youtube.com/Long Walk Short Drink, you can see videos mentioned on the show, and you can watch it there. It's super cool, actually. All right, back to the show.
PlayStation.
I mean, come on, right?
Whoa. Wait, so is that like what the cutscenes are like? That's just what the whole thing is somehow?
That's the whole game. Like,
That's crazy.
that would be over, you would move the joystick and your characters would start moving. And it would look just like that. That's
wow.
It is an intent. There are times I just had to put the controller down.
Yeah.
Take a break. Because it does. It really. You don't have to play it that way, of course, right? You don't have to think about the things they're asking you to think about. But when you do stop and just take a minute, there's a lot there to consider.
It just brings back the first one, and it's an emotional roller coaster.
It's about relationships, and it's about what it means to be a human, whether it's 2020 or whether it's the post-apocalypse.
I just thought that was a great way, because you asked, how does it elicit how does it go through all of these things? And I think that that trailer, I remember when that dropped with her playing the guitar and then them meeting back up and seeing them together again, and how aged both of them were after playing the first one. I just sobbed. It was just so beautiful in such a bleak setting. It is an intense game. I would even suggest, if you're not a gamer, you could even go. I saw in the suggested, there are people who have played the game and edited their gameplay together so it plays like a movie. So you could watch both of the games so that they're essentially like a movie while you watch them. The story is that good, I would suggest, even if you're checking it out that way. I think it would be worthwhile.
The woman playing the guitar there, her name is Ellie, and just after the first game that Palmer is talking about, you just really grow to love her, and you get to witness more of her kind of life as it changes, and it is.
That's cool, man. That looked really good.
Yeah, it's very emotional. For sure.
Very emotional. It's all set in this post-apocalyptic zombie-esque environment.
Right. Kind of deals with that differently than what you would get from The Walking Dead, maybe, or.
Yep. Absolutely.
Something like that.
Yep. Totally worth it, for sure. Excellent picks, man.
Wow.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it looks like I get to listen to at least one or two more before I bow out here. So I'm excited to hear what other people bring to the table, for sure.
Well, anyone else have I was Double D. We had threats of losing you. So.
I was just going to jump in because, and I kind of wanted to piggyback on that whole media thing that Twinkie was talking about. And I didn't necessarily set up a top 10, but in regards to media, I have consumed way more books this year than I probably have all my previous years on this earth combined. I've been really going through, and I've got a couple audiobooks that I listen to pieces and parts of over and over again. But I have my Libby app, which is just a library app. But there's some incredible media that I've gone through, and one that I would strongly encourage you to read, both Twinkie and Stan the Man, if you haven't yet. It's called God is Not Great by Christopher Hitchens.
Okay.
It is really, really good. I grew up in a traditional Christian Baptist type of a family, and we had 3 years or whatever where we had perfect attendance in our Sunday school class and all that good stuff, and it's really eye-opening. There's a lot of good historical references, parallels, and how as you kind of go through these religions and just take your pick, whatever religion you want to go through, you'll be able to find that same story arc, that same character arc, that same, storyline, pretty much everywhere else.
I Double D, I just bought that on my Kindle.
I'm telling you, outstanding. And tell me what you
Title
think.
one more time. Give us the title one more time.
It's called God Is Not Great. Christopher Hutchins.
Not to be confused with Michael Hutchins, who had a boner when he died.
I have a book right now.
So
outstanding.
Yeah. So one of the most awkward Halloween costumes one of my friends did, we had these Halloween parties, was he went as Michael Hutchins with a rope and he put a big old dildo in his pants as a
Wow.
Yeah. He's got problems.
That's all.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm all for boners.
That's the sound cut. I'm all for boners.
I like boners.
You work pro boner? I mean, pro bono?
I do.
So I've got one, and mine is musician. So Spotify released their list I don't know if you guys are Spotify consumers or not, but at the end of the year, Spotify compiles this list, tells you your top songs, your top genres, everything else, and does this whole presentation. Is pretty cool. And so, mine were all from the 70s. I have a very 70s soul, So, I've got Harry Nilsson and David Bowie and, Rolling Stones and that. But my number one musician I listen to. So usually I'm like, new music sucks. I don't like it. Give me the other stuff. Thank God I have teenage daughters, because Harry Styles was my number one musician this year. Whoa. And I say that
it's surprising.
I'm a 40-year-old man and I love Harry Styles. Okay. I'm just saying it right now. His albums are fantastic. I mean, fantastic. To me, if Pink Floyd was formed in 2020, they could have a little Harry Styles. Listen to Sign of the Times and tell me it's not like a modern Pink Floyd.
Oh, yeah. I remember seeing him play that on Saturday Night Live, and I was looking at this dude. I'm like, this is something about him had physically it was like a Eddie Vedder / David Bowie kind of vibe. And so I'm actually excited to hear you say that, because I saw that. I'm like, this is great. I put that song on an annual mix that I do, but I hadn't really thought of him again. That gives me a lot to look forward to. Anyway, go on. So I just didn't. I wanted to normalize the idea.
His album this year, but it's just got all these amazing songs. Watermelon Sugar was a big pop hit this summer. I mean, it's a great song. Adore You's great, but there's a song called Sunflower. And it was my number one most listened song to this year, and it's just fantastic. And I will tell you, so I don't know if you guys watch NPR's Tiny Desk concerts. Mm-hmm. They do on YouTube. Those are great. Watch the Harry Styles episode. It is so good. You will be smiling from ear to ear for the entire 15 minutes. I promise you. The whole band is amazing. He is just in there. They're just you can tell they're just so happy to be doing their craft. You know what I mean? And sharing that with them. I mean, it's the NPR Tiny Desk concert of Harry Styles will make you a fan if you're not one before.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I just listened to the John Prine one, I don't know, 3 days ago.
Nice
stuff. They're really good.
Yeah. I love those. And yes, rest in peace, John Prine.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're great. I love watching those Tiny Desk concerts.
I kind of feel like you do, but mine is Taylor Swift. As a 40-year-old man.
AJR. I like AJR a lot.
They do good stuff.
Yeah.
There's some really great talent. These kids, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
These kids putting out some good stuff.
Well, to your point,
things.
Twinkie, is that maybe Taylor Swift's music isn't always my cup of tea, but she writes and sings and produces her own music. And in a day and age where you have 20 writers and auto-tune and all this stuff, she's the real deal. 100%. Yeah. And Miley Cyrus I've gained a lot of respect for her this year. She just, I don't know if you guys listen to Howard Stern, but she was just on that last week, and on and on and on. I listened to her on Joe Rogan podcast and, all these other things. And Miley Cyrus is a really interesting cat. I mean, she really is, And she's got a very unique voice.
Yeah.
But she's been doing all these covers. She was talking about how she, at a Chris Cornell tribute, like she's saying "Say Hello to Heaven," and she went into there, like, and these people, grunge rock, like they're looking at this like Hannah Montana in their eyes, and they're so she has to win them over, and by God, just with her voice and the way she's doing it, I mean, she wins them over every time.
Wow.
Every time.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they told Trump to fuck off, so that's
right.
bonus.
Exactly. Yes, absolutely.
I enjoyed, because I appreciate Taylor Swift certainly, and I ended up watching that. I think it's a Miss Americana, the documentary on Netflix that I would recommend. It's I don't know, it's like these things are, but what's interesting about it is like she comes from this background and country music and kind of America's sweetheart type thing. Yeah. And I can't remember exactly when they said it, but it sort of shows her awakening as an adult to realizing what some of the limiting ideologies surrounding that kind of corporate version of those values and such, and her wrestling with those things. And, it's a little, you're watching this otherworldly privileged person like wrestle with some, but it is kind of interesting to see. You just get to see the mechanisms of it, and then you also get to see it kind of reflected in some music. So it's depending on the audience, but if you're into her, I think that's a cool thing to see.
Well, there's like a great scene in that documentary where she's like, I want to have this opinion, and there's this group of like dudes, and by dudes I mean like really old white dudes sitting in a circle being like, but if you have that opinion, you may lose 17.6% of your fans and your revenue will go down 18.2% or whatever. And she's like, I don't care.
Right.
It's the right thing to do. I don't really care.
And you know what? For as infuriating as that is, those dudes really aren't wrong. You remember what happened with the Dixie Chicks back in the day?
Oh, yeah. That's a great documentary, too.
They were at a concert in Europe, right? And they said, just so you know, we're ashamed, George Bush from Texas. And
that was it.
They disappeared. They were done.
Yeah.
They are just now starting to gain some like traction as the Chicks.
Right, as the Chicks.
Well, and that album that they came out with
is really good. I like that.
Oh, that's it's not on a list of mine, but they joined the ranks years ago after that thing with George Bush of like the artists. You just say their name and I get, oh fuck, like I get all welled up. But so there's a documentary about that time in their career called "Shut Up and Sing," and that song, I don't know what it's called. Oh, it's "I'm Not Ready to Make Nice," I think is a song. Mm-hmm. It's from years ago, but it's incredible. Their current album is mostly like a breakup album, like not Natalie Main's, but that doesn't really matter. There's some irresistible stuff on it. But there's a song called "March." The video for that is just devastating. Yeah, so the bride will play, like, she was playing that a lot at the time, and I just cannot, and she'll play their music. I can't deal with them. Like, I can't listen to them. Something about that chick's voice, just like, somebody might as well kick me in the dick, because I just start to, like, I was just trying to, like, do dishes, and I'm just, like, sobbing. I'm like, you have to turn this out. And it's, like, reliable. Like, it just gets me every time.
Yeah.
The one thing I do want to say about that Taylor Swift thing, too, that more than anything, that documentary, so it might even be that scene you're talking about, Twinkie. Like, these people are talking, like, why would you want to cut half your audience in half? And there's a certain point in a scene like that where that sentence is said, and it looks like a room full of managers and stuff, but it's her fucking dad.
Yeah,
and I remember, like, that dawning on me in the middle of the conversation, like, not just like, oh, shit, when you take it into account that it's her dad, but like, I didn't know it was her dad. And then once I knew that, I was like, whoa. And then she says this thing in the most, like, doesn't matter who you are, you like Miss Americana or whatever. She just goes like, this is how I feel, and I need you to forgive me. She says to her dad. I don't know. I don't even know how to process all of that. You know?
Yeah.
Like, that is not the kind of dad I would like to be.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think maybe he does or whatever, but like he fucking shouldn't have to be. But just hearing her say that, that's the thing I'll always remember about that documentary.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, so great pulls, like the music ones. Jesus.
Well, I'm gonna bow out now and take my kids to bed and do whatever.
Right.
But thank you
for joining us,
I
buddy.
look forward to listening to what everybody else has to say. I love this. I love seeing all of you. It's a great way to end this fucking dumpster fire of a year.
Yep. Thanks so much, Twinkie.
Yeah.
Happy holidays to you and yours.
Oh, thank you. You as well.
And
You guys have a great time.
we'll talk offline. We'll try to get that. Let's get this apostolic episode up. I think it's going to be fascinating, and I really am looking forward to being a part of that conversation.
As soon as we set some dates, I will pursue 100%.
Awesome.
I'll take the lead on it.
Let me
All right.
help. Let me know any way I can help. Love you. It's great to see you. Take care.
Likewise, buddy.
Awesome. See you, Twinkie.
Yeah. Bye.
I got a music one that's a quick one because it's something we've talked about before on the podcast.
Hang on. Wait a minute.
I know, yeah.
Go. Okay. Your quick one. Let's hit it.
I tried. Yeah, a lot of times for me in these kind of lists, like
40 minutes from
Palmer and
now.
I have done, historically, they haven't always been new, like things from the year, but they've been new to me. I try not to do any of that this year, almost in defiance of the difficult year it was, or just to think about like what offered comfort and joy and all those things for me this year. And we mentioned it before about Pearl Jam. They released their first album in quite a few years, their 11th studio album, Gigaton, 7 years, first album, 7 years, was just so much better than it had any right to be at this point in their career. I mean, it'd been like, it just really caught me off guard. It was oddly prescient in some of the lyrics. If you listen to them, songs like actually so many of the songs, it's absurd. And a real progressive sound for them at times, and it's a very band type record to where they're all contributing songs, playing all kinds of different instruments than they normally play. So I ordered the pre-ordered the vinyl that came with like a single, like a 45 for the song "Dance of the Clairvoyants," which I think is probably my favorite song off the record and has the most sort of different sound for them. But and then one of those lyrics, just to give you an example, is like, numbers keep falling off the calendar floor. We're stuck in our boxes. I can't remember the rhyme to that, but it was like when every tomorrow is the same as before. It's just like, so this album was recorded prior to all this. It dropped in like March, at the end of March, but it just was just the perfect thing to address the moment somehow as well. So I started to do an unboxing video of the vinyl, and it turned into like a 20-minute review that's on our Long Walk Short Drink YouTube page. So you can hear me talk more at length there about the album itself. But also just with the band, they couldn't tour, of course. And so they ended up doing a lot of things that they wouldn't ordinarily do, like extended interviews on podcasts and stuff. And Stan, you mentioned the Howard Stern show, which I hadn't listened to in more years than I could tell you, like before XM, all that stuff. But Eddie Vedder was on it and talked to him for like 3 hours. And it was great.
It was a great interview.
Yeah, even for like a such a longtime fan like me, there was stuff I learned. He talked about like, because Howard gave him, for instance, like his reading of, it's not even reading or interpretation. Like the song Yellow Ledbetter doesn't have written lyrics, and it's often kind of improvised, and it sounds a certain way, but it's almost gibberish at times, at least on the recording and stuff. But it's become a real fan favorite. And so Howard floats the thing that the chorus or refrain is like, I don't know whether I was the boxer or the bag, the person being hit or the person doing the hitting. And Ed says where like the song actually came from. And for him, it was like this story of, he said he was like on his way to the studio that day and waved to some people on a porch, and they didn't wave back. And there's something about that tied into like this story of a soldier writing letters to his brother or something like that. So anyway, I can't remember. Oh, so his thing was like, I don't know whether I'm coming home in a box or a bag, like a body. But I still don't think, and he gave Howard the credits, like yours is better. There's no way he's sung that version before. I've heard it. I thought that for years. Anyway, So anyways, wonderful interview on Howard Stern. He plays some songs and have a wonderful conversation, as well as showing up. Ed does on like some podcasts, like a baseball show called Off the Mound, another called Daddy Issues. And then, so generally, they've been a band from their inception that has a very strong sort of social conscience and social commentary in their music and in the way that they conduct the business of the band. And so historically, they would do like they did the Get Out the Vote effort. They did a whole tour in 2004, the Vote for Change tour. But they've kind of adapted that into like their tour strategy around these times in history. And so like they were going to be going through battleground states, and they couldn't do that. So they came up with like a whole online, what the New York Times called a political operation, PJ Votes, to help register and mobilize voters. And the last thing I'll say about one of the kind of highlights of that multi-pronged effort, it's not all just kind of preaching to the choir or just telling people who they should vote for. It's like they're putting out their music and just kind of contextualizing it in ways that draw attention to those sorts of things. So they would take what I have to imagine were recorded for like I can't think what you said, like just like the big screens at concert venues, that if you're in the nosebleeds, you watch the screens more than the people. And, those have multi-camera affairs, and they switch between the cameras, and they're kind of a show of their own. And so from what I can tell of the archival performances they're releasing, they must come from those type of recordings, because there's a bunch of them, and they couldn't have all been like professionally commissioned for like you would once do for a DVD release or something. So anyway, the one I'll highlight, they put these on nugs.net or the Nugs app, and it was the October 22nd, 2000. On October 22nd, which was their 30th anniversary of their first live performance. They streamed an April 2016 concert in Philadelphia, pretty important city to this last election. But in that concert, they played the album. They opened the concert with the album 10 performed from front to back. And so I had spent a lot of time with Pearl Jam this year. Actually, even just going back through their catalog in anticipation of the new album, enjoying the new album and all these things that they offered, and these concerts that they put up, like that was a great way to start that show. But then it was like all bets are off, and the set list was like just delicious. And I just really appreciate those guys. I have for a long time, but the fact that they're still doing the kind of work and the invested work and meaningful work that they are at this stage in their careers is crazy. And I'm just really grateful for it. There, Double D, did I get to 40? That's it. That's all I got to say about it.
Nice. No, that wasn't 40 minutes. I'm just messing with you anyway. We're still 40 minutes away from getting to the end of this segment, I'm sure. Yeah. So
I have three quick ones actually that tie to things that we've already talked about a little bit. So I'm just going to rapid fire these. So like to tie to Twinkie's like video game, I really got into Raspberry Pis during 20 just as like project stuff, and they're just these little. I'm so sorry about the dogs. They're just then my wife shushing them in the background. If you can hear all that, that's so fun. They're these little tiny single board computers that are like dirt cheap. That are just they have the equivalent computing power as a desktop computer, but they're like one circuit board, and they ship where it looks like one circuit board. They're pretty interesting, but there's a really large retro gaming community so like the old Atari and Nintendo and Super Nintendo and all those games that use these computers, these little computers to build these. I have this little tiny computer that's about this big that has 8,000 old games on it.
Wow.
That you can play. So really fun. So there's that. And then music-wise, I have two music ones. So we've talked about Sirius. So like Howard Stern. So I know a few of you have Sirius. I have absolutely fallen in love with Classic Rewind, which is like
that's a great channel.
their subtitle of the channel is the second generation of rock. So it's like if you consider rock, like the first generation is like is their like classic vinyl, I think, or there's a vinyl station. So that's the first generation of rock. This is all cassette era rock, but it's not like hair metal. It's like you get, oh man, it's just good stuff. Really, it's great music that's fun to listen to. So that's my first music one. And then my other music one is Stan the Man and I and our wives actually went and saw Tom Petty in his final tour. The year that he died, we saw him. And they just released this beautiful Wildflowers re-release that's it's like $250. It's some ridiculous amount to get this thing.
Magic number.
I know, it's like perfect price, right? And I might have just made that price up actually just to fit our narrative. But
none of us batted an eye.
Yeah. So they, in that release, they released a bunch of tracks, and one of them is this single called "Leave Virginia Alone." It's just, it's not like it's anything new or groundbreaking for Tom Petty. It's just great to hear new Tom Petty when you live in a world when there's only going to be so much new Tom Petty you're going to hear as his estate slowly releases the last of his stuff, right? So it just is nice to know that I got a new Tom Petty song in 2020 in a year that's so much shit for an artist that means so much to me. So that would be my other music one. So there's 3. Boom, boom, boom. For Dave's Pearl Jam, I got 3 knocked out.
Well done.
Efficient.
Is it too soon to talk about Neil Young and selling his catalog? And
no, that's Bob Dylan sold his fucking catalog.
So did Neil Young.
The voice of the counterculture sells out at the in the third act. What the fuck?
So did Neil Young the same week. Neil Young too.
He did it too?
Yes.
Again, I stand by how badass would it have been if they would have just if Bob Dylan would have just released his catalog to public domain. It was they negotiated. It was like 900 copyrights. It was 900 copyrights that they negotiated on. You're telling me you couldn't have just even as a token, here's my favorites that I'm just going to release in the public domain because I want anybody to be able to do what they want with them because they mean so much to me. Even if you would you still could have made your millions if you would have put 12 songs out there. These ones are just going to the world.
But you can't tell me. I don't know. I guess it's who knows what every person goes through. But does Bob Dylan really need millions? You would think at this point in his life.
Healthcare is expensive when you're old. Again,
you're right.
Yeah. It just maybe I don't know enough about the situation probably, and this is getting into the white guys just sitting bitching about shit they don't understand. But it really feels kind of swarmy I don't even like Bob Dylan. I don't I'm not I appreciate him, but he doesn't have the same rotation that I know he does with Dave and I know he does with Twinkie.
The Neil Young one is what really got me though. That one makes me real sad.
Have either of them said anything about it, or is just it's reported and?
No, they just had 13 fucking states just sued the Supreme Court trying to overturn the election results. Much bigger fish to fry than fucking Bob Dylan and Neil Young selling out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Double D's out. He's going to stuff with this. He's doing dirty stuff with his wife.
Oh.
that was the image that the look he gave right before he's you were ready to failed. That was what that was.
I hadn't thought of that when you and I talked about that earlier. That idea that, or just the counterculture thing. But your suggestion, I don't know if you floated that when we talked about it before about just releasing it to the public domain. That would have been pretty cool. Like that's the kind of thing I can imagine Trent Reznor doing next week. You know,
I actually think there's a large portion of Trent Reznor's catalog that is in the public domain.
Yeah, yeah. There's the Ghost albums, yeah, and there was some more of those this year.
Beastie Boys did the same thing. They released a large. I think they released some of their catalog into the public domain to keep it out. Like, and again, that like, if you care about what your art is and you care about the fans having access to that art, I mean, all that copyright is control, right? Like it's somebody being able to control the monetization of that art. And you made your money off of it and you used it to like generate a movement. I feel like it's just it all was a ruse. Like it was just a long con. I played this character all this time when it really was just all about the money. That's what it's like. And I don't it's not my business, it's not my catalog, it's not my career. I don't even like Bob Dylan. Like to just like put him in rotation. I like Bob Dylan, of course, but like to just put him into rotation to listen to that, like he's not going to be one of my artists to do that.
It's very interesting though because you don't necessarily like him, and I could be wrong about this, but I can't think. I've been thinking about it since we talked about it, and I don't think there is another musician, public figure in the modern era or whatever. Like nobody had. He was the first person to have that kind of voice of a generation mantle put on him, and it's interesting because he did, like, he was just a dude and just a dude that loved music and was inspired by things, you know, Woody Guthrie and the like, and was like affecting, and then that influence was really transparent at a certain point in his career as he was first getting started, and he was making that folk music, but had his roots in rock, and so the whole like 50s rock and roll, and so he was into the folk thing for a while, but he was also initially like anyway, so when he plugged in, like, people were pissed off. It's like he was just the first to go through a lot of that stuff, right? And when we first talked about this, I thought about it, and he means a lot to me. He was someone that I didn't get for a while, but joined the sort of personal pantheon of the people who can get me, like the Dixie Chicks, when you just bring them up, and that was a turning point for me and stuff. But I haven't listened to him for a long time. But yeah, he stands for something. For I think, even like you said, even the folks who don't. There's that. I always think about that Joan Baez quote in the Scorsese documentary No Direction Home, where she's like, "There's some people that just don't, like, you could take them or leave them. But for those of us like who he means something, like, it goes deep." And for me, I always aspired for him to be someone for me. And at a certain point, he became that through some effort I think I made to kind of dig in there. But it was weird because of that. I don't consume him casually, and I haven't paid much attention to anything he's done, any of his radio stuff on whatever, for years and years. I watched the second Scorsese doc, the Rolling Thunder review, which was fucking great and reminded me of the power that guy can have. And he was in a totally different place. He was like wearing kabuki makeup, inspired by Kiss, though not looking anything like Kiss, singing in a kind of a different voice, but like this really powerful voice. It was like the gut punch Bob Dylan. He's like from the mid 70s. That anyway, but so
he just put out an album this year, right?
Yeah, see, like that I haven't tracked. I haven't kept up with. And it's funny, in that Scorsese doc, there's a new interview with him about that time that most of the footage comes from. And he's like, that's another lifetime, man. He's just like, he's fucking over it. You know, and that's what it struck me as when you first told me that. He was just like, look, he's had to have done everything he wanted to do, and he's just selling it off. Kind of like, I thought about Lucas a little bit, like George Lucas selling off Star Wars. Yeah. The Neil Young thing throws me for a loop, though.
Star Wars in the public domain.
Fucking, whoa.
He could have done that.
Yeah, but I would have taken $1 billion, though, for Star Wars. I'm not going to,
$4 billion, actually.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I don't blame him for that one. The Neil Young, that threw me off. Like when Bob Dylan did a Victoria's Secret commercial like 10 or years ago, like that's when he started. I was like, ooh, Bob Dylan. So this one doesn't surprise me that much, but the Neil Young one, man, like, fuck. Come on, Neil Young. Like, I don't know.
I now like to think of them
more.
in like a room, just like talking together. Be like, let's do this. Let's just like fuck them all.
Right.
That's the last thing we'll expect.
You know what? Everything we stood for, you know what? We're all just fucking sold out with the rest of the baby boomers. Just rip their heart out in the same week.
This a fleeting thought just passed, and this is probably idealistic and founded upon it's definitely founded upon nothing I have any knowledge of, but like we don't know what they're going to do with that money. I was just thinking about that because of Pearl Jam, because I do know that Pearl Jam does a fuck ton of charity that they don't tell people about.
Right.
I like to think that this is how I'm going to recontextualize in my mind to sleep better at night. It's like Neil Young and Bob Dylan were in a room conspiring. They're like, we're going to sell it all. We're going to make all this money and give it to X to kind of keep shit from blowing up. But obviously none of that's true. But that's my alternate reality that it's a video game I'm going to make.
I was going to say, I was going to throw in there was, my top election of 2020.
Had that not been talked, I thought for sure that I'd missed that piece because there's no way we don't talk about or hadn't talked about that at this point.
Yeah. So you may think,
which isn't over yet.
Well, that's right.
It is not.
So this is quite an interesting year on many fronts, but of course, I started the year like, just kind of like, well, I'll vote for Biden because it's not Trump, but he by the end of this campaign season convinced me that he's going to do great things. Like he really turned it around for me. Like I was an Elizabeth Warren fan, and all that, and Joe Biden really he won me over. And so that's really cool to see and all of that. But my favorite election might have been mine this year. And on, a lot of different fronts, it was a really interesting year. Being a history teacher, politics is hand in hand with that, right? Like, we teach about history, basically, especially early history through the administrations, right? There's whole units on Jefferson and on and on and on. And, to be able to be a part of that process is really cool. And I did not win the general. I got run over by the Trump train, unfortunately, up here. And, corrupt, dirty money to the tune of $369,000 they used against me. But that's for another time. But it was really cool. Like I won a primary. So I won an American election. And I got to be in this process. And I learned a lot, good, bad, ugly, made a lot of friends, but it was really cool to be able to just stand up there and talk about what I believe in and help to be the sort of torchbearer for people that felt the same way I did and wanted to fight for the same things that I did. And it was really cool. It's really cool. And I think it kind of awoken something in me that maybe I had buried down or thought I couldn't do or, what everything else, but I'm in this now, man, 100%. Like I'm in it. Palmer, you were talking about leaving a legacy earlier in this episode. And for as frustrating as politics is, and as sometimes as nasty and dirty, never forget that the right people in can absolutely change the world for the better and make a difference. It's one of the very few professions that you can make a tangible, lasting difference in the lives of thousands upon thousands of people. And so, there's a lot of bullshit. I mean, we could have an entire episode on just the behind the scenes bullshit that goes on in political races. But despite all of that stuff, it is still such an opportunity to do tremendous good. And it's cool, man. That's cool. So it was a crazy year on the political front all the way around.
I just have to say, like, how inspirational it was. Again, like one of the things that I at least struggle with is that to just be this like armchair change agent, to just talk about and talk and talk and talk. And you actually went out and you fought to like be a change agent and to like go through all of that. It was just very inspirational and very awe-inspiring, I think is the best way for me to say it.
Oh, well, thanks, dude. Appreciate that.
What surprised you the most about the process, or that you just weren't expecting?
That you have to spend hours every single day calling and asking people for money. Every day. Every friggin' day. And it all comes down to money. So in my race in particular, I got 28 endorsements, including from President Barack Obama, Sherrod Brown, UAW, on and on and on and on and on, like all the teacher unions, 28 endorsements. And the local newspaper not only endorsed me, but it was a complete takedown of my opponent. Like they said, he was the single worst interview they've ever had in their history. He seems completely unprepared, doesn't know what he's talking about, on and on. Like, brutal takedown, right? 28 endorsements from business, labor, service, on and on and on. But my opponent outspent me 4-1. Okay, on a local state rep race, he raised almost $400,000, and it all came from the state party, which is dirty money from the, I don't know how much national news is going on here, but the Ohio Speaker of the House will be going to federal prison for the largest bribery scheme ever perpetrated, $61 million for $1 billion bailout from this, First Energy Power Company, and it's nasty, it's dirty. He's going to prison on RICO charges, okay? But he put all this money in the state party. And so I think, Double D, what surprised me the most is it doesn't matter how qualified you are. What matters is how much money you can put behind you for the marketing. That's what matters. And he even stole my platform, and it was just negative. Like they did negative attack ads for me, one after another, 10 days straight, all the way through the election. And that's what did it. I mean, he's awful. He was absolutely horrible. We did this big public forum at this park, and like even the Republicans were coming up for me like, "Wow, you did a really nice job there. Your opponent doesn't seem like he knows what he's talking about." But it doesn't matter because they were able to have so much money to throw at it. That's what matters, and it's a little disheartening to me because again, I sort of teach still this idealized notion of we're always striving towards this more perfect union, and it's a land of liberty and opportunity. But, not to sound like a Debbie Downer, but that's not true, especially after Citizens United. Now, not only corporations are people here by law, but it seems to be that corporations are the only people that matter. And so to have that sort of reaffirmed, because, this scandal, this bribery scandal to bail out. So they labeled me as a socialist. Meanwhile, this is the party that gave $1 billion to a private corporation, a buyout, who that corporation then turned around and gave $300 million back to their private investors. This corporation is 3 blocks from the University of Akron. They are so flush with cash, they give $300 million back to private stock owners, but the University of Akron is dying and withering on the vine 3 blocks away. And so, like, to me, it's like you can just see this decay of, well, not even decay, like where our priorities lie, right? Education doesn't matter. The only thing that matters in this country is to make money. And to see that sort of reaffirmed in this election, especially in the state of Ohio. So Larry Householder, the guy that was will be going to federal prison for this First Energy bribery scandal, got reelected in a landslide. And so I think, I don't know, that was a long diatribe on your simple question, Double D, but I think to me that was the most surprising because what I started to say is I do teach this idealized version. Still, I grew up like all of us. We grew up in 1980, and like for as much as I can logically disagree with Reagan's policies now in my adult age, there's sort of that nostalgia in me because we were trained and indoctrinated and all of this stuff. And I still want to believe that anybody can do anything in this country if they have enough grit and all of that. But that's not true anymore. And I think that it breaks my heart a little bit because
It wasn't ever true.
Maybe it was never true. Yeah. And I think you're right, because maybe it was never true. And I think that sort of realization, it's been sad for me. I mean, Palmer and Double D, for as radically liberal as I am, I am a very patriotic man. I mean, I am a flag waving American, love this, and so that has been that's been hard for me this year, because I think that, especially being a historian, it's making me look at all of these sort of things I've always taken for granted, maybe in a new light, and really seeing where our priorities lie. There's a very few amount of years in our history where you're pointing to historical movements or politicians that are actually moving forward the interests of actual people. And everything else is about business and Gilded Age and corporations and power. And that's who we are. And that's
a group of people. They might push the ideals of a group of people, but it's their inner circle that they're pushing.
Yeah.
Someone could even say that about the revolutionaries. They were a very close knit circle of people who all had a vision that they even convinced, and I'm sure they thought they were representing everybody, but when you really look at it, they were so all together,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and there's this whole caste system then that we don't really even think about, right? But you had land-owning aristocrats and slaves and on and on and on. I mean, people don't talk about George Washington's slave who also crossed the Delaware in the Revolutionary War. And you know what I mean? I mean, so, yeah, and that's who we always have been. And that's sort of this great, I don't know. It's just this great dichotomy in America, right? Because for so many, this country has been a land of refuge and safety and triumph. I mean, all of us at one point had ancestors that were fleeing something else to come here. But at the other hand, this country was founded off, first the extermination of the people that lived here originally, and and it just goes on from there. And then it was the Mexicans, and we only took half of the country instead of all of it because there were too many brown Catholics in the country. And so that's, what I mean? I mean, it's when you see all of these things and on and on and on, and then you really see about when you study the Civil War, and the North won the battles, but really the Confederacy won the war of law and hearts and minds. I mean, think about how all of us in here learned about the Republican Congress after the Civil War. We called them the radical Republicans, right? Because, oh my God, they wanted black men to be able to vote. And so, it really makes you look at this country from a, not even a critical eye, just a different perspective, and to see, just to be able to step outside of that a little bit and to look at it it's been a little bit tough this year.
Yeah, part of my I don't know, consumption of these books and stuff has just been, I mean, there's been a ton of the Black Lives Matter movement and the new Jim Crow laws and on and on about how, we talk about the Civil War being the changing point in America. And it's not it wasn't not it didn't do anything for the people that were enslaved. And on paper it was all great, and I shouldn't even say that, because on paper it was awful. Right. The laws in the books and the ways that the ways that we have systemically kept an entire race of people down and continue to do so. And again, here we are, four white dudes and sitting about talking about it, but it's something that we need to talk about. And it's just been really eye-opening and almost, maybe not shameful, I guess, but the idea behind, prior to this Black Lives Matter movement, just the idea of, the white privilege not even being on my radar.
Right.
And the history of this country has been told to us by white people about how great we are and how everybody has this chance. And clearly it's the almighty dollar, right? That
Right.
runs the country.
Yeah, and to your point, I remember when that first. Remember, it was like what 2015, 16ish, like that. The term white privilege really started to come out in popular culture. And initially, I pushed back at that because I had a rough upbringing and all this stuff. I said, "What privilege did I have?" And I remember the moment it clicked for me is when I watched Philando Castile die on TV in Minnesota, and I have never once in my life been afraid when a cop pulls me over that I was about to die. Never one time.
Or this is one that I ran across that really put it home for me. Like, was not going to college ever an option for you, no matter how destitute? Right? Like, I had somebody say that where I read somebody comment on that. Like, what did white privilege, as a white person, what did white privilege mean to you in hindsight? And it was like I grew up poor on, in the projects or what have you. But at the end of the day, I was smart, and that meant not going to college was not an option. Like, so, yeah.
Have you ever thought about what it must take for a black person to love this country?
Oh man.
I mean, I can't, again, just like Double D said, we're four white dudes, like just speculating here, but I can't even imagine, when you think about the not only the history from the beginning of our country, but the history that continues to this very day. I mean, it's, I am.
Take it another step further is, can you imagine having to live? This is a definition of white privilege. Could you imagine having to turn your eye to something to be able to love this country?
Right.
Like we don't have to do that. It's easy for us to love this country, right? We have to find shit to bitch about, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the thing, though, that when you do see these things for what they are, then you do have to turn. I don't know how to fucking love this country. Yeah. I'm disgusted by it. And I thought I have to be careful because I can't reveal too much or whatever, but I thought because of what I'd learned, who I'm married to, how they spend their life, she got her shit together in regard to all of this before we met when she was 30. And it's like a huge part of her life and work as being a white person who gets this stuff and happens to be good at explaining it to other white people. And so I thought that from what I had learned from being married to her, I thought what I had kind of learned in college myself and kind of stepping outside of the bubble of Rittman, Ohio, where there are no people of color at all when we grew up, maybe one or whatever, like less than 10 in terms of, I don't know, whatever, getting into numbers, but it's absurd. It's
less than 5 is safe.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought I had a growing and sufficient like understanding of systemic racism. And then, like you mentioned about seeing in 2015, Philando Castile in Minnesota, fucking once again. And I think of Minnesota and I think of the Twin Cities, where I live and where I work, as being a progressive place. And it's historically, it's like but it's not in certain areas. Anyway, but like the George Floyd flashpoint.
Yeah.
There's that thing like, what do you have to turn as a black American, turn a blind eye to love this country? Right. That video, like, for those that saw it, and I haven't even seen the whole thing. By the time I had the courage to look it up, it didn't even show up in the search results. What did show up was 3 of the officers kneeling on the man. And I watched like 30 seconds of that. And that was plenty.
Yeah.
No, it's not plenty, actually. It should bear witness to the whole thing, but sorry.
Right tonight, right now, because this week a black man was killed in Columbus by sheriff's department. And
Yeah.
so there's going to be protests all weekend. But, you know, he died holding his Subway sandwich he got for his grandma and his 5-year-old brother, died falling into his house. And, you know, the cops weren't looking for him. He was a legal CCW carrier. He had no criminal history or anything else. And he got shot by a dude who had a lot of complaints against him. And he died falling into his own house, just like Medgar Evers.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just continuous. And I don't know. That's what, for me, I just think about, like, what must it take for a black person to love this country? Because I don't think I could.
And I think we're at a place where it's harder and harder for even the people who have benefited from that system to look away. And we're at seems to be, I mean, at least the us talking about it, we're at turning points in our lives that have come from these last few years. That's the thing I kind of bristle about when people talk about 2020, like fuck 2020. And I'm just like, 2020 is just the time in which this shit came to light. not just the racial, but whatever, all this stuff, even the biological realities. Anyway,
Yeah.
So that, not just to like rail against it, you know, I think the idea that people like us are learning that, fuck, dude, I don't know you that well, but when Palmer shared me you're getting engaged in this process, like he was like, Stan's out there like doing this. I was like, I fucking talked to that guy. I was like so oddly proud to know you in the little bit that I do. And so I want to acknowledge that, like, as odd as I am by you stepping into that arena to put your whole life into it like that is awesome. How did you come to decide to do that and find the courage and fortitude to jump in there?
Yeah, it's well, I don't know. Some days were better than others with the courage and fortitude, you know. But so the way it worked out, you know, again, being a history teacher, it's something I sort of always aspired to, is this public life. But I sort of thought it'd be 10 years from now. You know, I still have little kids, and, you know, life is crazy busy. But, you know, when we would take field trips to the State House or whatever, I'd always get my picture taken by the rolls up there, you know, because I think that, you know, again, like Paul was saying earlier, like, I want to leave a legacy. Like, I want to do something that can advance the common good and do my part towards that. I don't know. I feel like I've spent a lot of my life sort of living for myself, you know, and like, there's a lot of selfish things and a lot of growing up I had to do. And I think I just want to make sure I'm spending the second part of this life, whatever life I have left, like, hoping to advance the common good in whatever way I can. And the opportunity arose where a couple of candidates that had run before and won before, that they thought they would have been the natural selection to sort of step into this race, they declined. And the county party here was looking around for someone to step in. And I answered the call, went over there and met with people, and they were, you know, impressed enough, and it was kind of on from there. But, you know, we started a campaign where really nobody knew who I was, to one where the president, you know, former president of the United States, was tweeting my name out to 55 million people. I mean, it was pretty rad, you know. I mean, it was cool. So we did a lot of good things, and I, you know, surrounded myself with good people. Then I've made a lot of good friends this year. But, you know, I think, like I said, Dave, I think a lot of people get into public service and they lose sight of why they got in there in the first place. And then they want to hang on to power, and it becomes that, you know. But to be able to, again, like I said earlier, just to carry the torch for people that believe like I did, and maybe I'm blessed with more natural skills or natural inclinations that allow me to carry the torch for these people. And I took that responsibility very seriously. And, you know, I never made this election about me. Like, this wasn't like a cult of personality type of thing. Like, it was always about the issues and what is right and the movement here we're trying to build. And I think it was just, I don't know, I'm really humbled. It was really cool to be able to do that. And now we're sitting here even post-election, you know, and I had a decision to make. Do I just go on to something else, or do I, you know, we made made quite a name for myself this year in this area. And like, like it or not, like I'm being seen as a leader now. And do I continue to use my voice to promote this common good? And that's what I'm doing. So we're keeping the website up and everything going. And, we're putting out videos, and I can tell it was a little bit unexpected, the reactions I've been having this week and last week to coming back onto my social media and saying stuff. I mean, I think people are they just crave, I don't know, sort of moral leadership and good leadership so bad in these times that I think that I can step into that void and really work to do that. So I hope so. Anyway, I mean, I have, some people are math people and they just understand math. I've always been like that with history. I'm just a history dork. It just always makes sense to me. And so I hope that I can use that knowledge of that and help to maybe build a brighter future. So that's kind of what I got on my docket here in the next few years.
That's great. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. I'm so excited to just see this happen.
Thanks, man.
Fantastic. So proud of you, dude.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's not easy. I even said it sometimes this year. Like there are some days where I like didn't want to get out of bed and I had to like hide under the covers. I mean, it's called a campaign for a reason. So I don't want people to think I was just this strong figure up there. There were many nights where I had to hug and say, "Why did I do this?" You're right, So, but you persevere, right? That's what you got to do. Yeah. You can't give up. And so, actually, the theme of my campaign became "Don't give up the ship" for so many reasons. So there's this, famous Oliver Hazard Perry in the War of 1812 had this huge flag made, "Don't give up the ship," because the British had never been defeated in naval warfare in their entire history. And so he went out there and handed the British, wrote that famous line, "We have met the enemy and they are ours." But the "Don't give up the ship" became the theme. Not only I started it for me, just with me, don't forget what you're fighting for, but we carry that along about all of these values, and I know it seemed that we're under this onslaught from the right wing, especially in Ohio, but don't give up the ship, And so that became a real rallying cry. Yeah, I had people that voted for me telling me online, saying that back to me after I lost. Don't give up the ship. Don't give up the ship. And like, that's really cool to be a part of that movement.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Rock on, man. I don't know if you were alluding to this quote earlier, but never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has.
Absolutely.
Which I thought was a Jed Bartlett quote from the West Wing, which I just started to watch this year.
I have watched 4 seasons over again this year.
I'm not sure what season we're on, and I haven't seen the reunion. I always sort of, I've had a growing suspicion over the years that I would enjoy that show, and I never watched it. It was on, and the bride and I think early this year watched His Girl Friday on like the Criterion app. And it's a Howard Hawks movie, like from the 40s, that real like just witty repartee, like really fast back and forth, like, sassy broads and and I'm married to one of those, and she was into it, and so was I. And so that made me think of Aaron Sorkin, because I think he was like kind of the his type of dialogue. And so I was like, why don't we try that? And I remember her telling me at the start of it, she was like, I don't know. It was like early in quarantine. And I don't know, man. I was a mess. I'm better, but I'm still kind of a mess. Anyway, a lot of stuff got boiled over, as we talked about. Anyway, but so she's like, I don't know if you're going to be able to handle this, seeing this disparity between this White House and the one that we have.
Right.
But I debated as to whether or not to put it on my list, but it just kind of came up because of that quote. But that show has been such a comfort and delight for me.
Yes. I watched it on the darkest days this summer in campaign. I would watch The West Wing. And it just reminded me, for obviously it's fictionalized, but, we can be a country of the rule of law and what is right again. It just reminded me that this current state of politics that we're in doesn't have to be what we have to be for always.
That's right.
We can change
Yeah.
and be better.
Fucking A. And it's funny because like I floated a dream world in which Neil Young and Bob Dylan conspired to sell their catalogs together and give the money to charity. So I'm looking at this quadrants of the three of you who I know are friends and who I know through each other. And so all I can imagine is like I'm just like looking at your Sam Seaborn and Josh Lyman, like when Josh, like when you see the guy, you go find Josh goes to find Sam. He's like, oh, and so Sam quits being a lawyer. So
yes,
Palmer and Double D, everybody. Anyway, that's my fantasy world.
Well, I was to say I probably need to wrap it up because we've got some Christmas shopping that needs to be finalized before we miss out on that magical shipping window.
Oh yes.
But just like as far as some of the other things, there's a website. A website. There's a YouTube channel. It's called Legal Eagle, and it's this very charismatic lawyer that like will break down film and give you like the actual legal, like what it would be like in real life. So he does like the kill count for Batman, like what it would.
Whoa, Batman doesn't kill people.
If
Batman versus Superman, he killed people.
So
that's not canon.
Anyways, it's like would Batman be on the hook for damages? Yeah. And if so, what are you looking at? Like what would it kind of all tally out to be? But he also does a lot of like current stuff. So like, can President Trump pardon himself? And goes through it in a very, very clear, very humanistic term. Now, he uses a lot of legal terms, but it's still, you can definitely follow along with it. He does like My Cousin Vinny. He talks about, he'll do like the Simpson episodes with, good Lord. Off camera. I'm going to wrap it up a lot quicker than I thought.
She knows how to make this stuff happen.
Yeah.
If only this had a rear-facing camera, guys.
It's a laptop. You can rotate it. Ass.
Oh man! By the time I got it turned around, anyway,
your face says it all.
Legal Eagle. It's awesome. It's a great YouTube channel. Definitely check it out.
I will check that out. That sounds really cool.
And he talks about like Indochino. It's like it gives you like a suit discount like either the first 4 minutes or like the last 4 minutes. There's always some kind of a little code. That's just absolutely outstanding. So that's been a lot of fun. So I highly recommend that. But that's been it's been super crazy with life and everything, and 2020 knocking you down, and but just trying to find ways to stay positive and keep yourself going. That's kind of been, man, it's been the crazy year. A lot of reaching out to friends virtually, and getting to know people better, and just talking about the stuff that, man, just kicks you in the shins, and then pulls you up under the arms and puts you back on the right road. So that's been kind of fun too. I think that sometimes we have a tendency outside of the 2020 era where you'd go times without hanging out with friends, and you'd find excuses not to get with friends. And this is really kind of, I think, kind of grounded me, and really kind of brought me back to, to my core, my cabin kids or whatever, if you want, if you will.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
And, just building those friendships and just appreciating people more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I appreciate you, sir. You've been a great friend this year and a bright light in this dark time. Thank you.
Right back at you. Indeed.
Thanks. So,
and we have to keep the brides apart. Like, I mean, yeah.
Worlds will collide.
Yes. Yeah. Oh gosh.
Overpower us. You got to run?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take off. But oh my gosh, I can't wait to hear if how much longer Palmer can pumpkin.
I'm not gonna make it.
I'll just power through just so that Stan can hear, and then
oh my gosh, Stan the man's pleasure. Palmer, Dave, as always, man. Love you guys.
Love you too.
Man, can't wait for 2021. But hey, there's a lot of good things with 2022.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Night, guys.
Bye, buddy.
Be well.
There's a lot. There's a lot of good things in 2022.
That's what I heard too. Like 2 years.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. See you guys.
Peace.
Awesome, man. See you later.
Well, you're both very fortunate because I have to pee badly. So I will I'll be quick. But so this is a entertainment, I guess, but it's a documentary, but it's an audio documentary called Scene on Radio, spelled like scene as in a movie, and it comes out of the Center for Documentary Studies at Duke University. It's produced and hosted by this guy called John Buin, and it's kind of an NPR vibe. I don't know if it was actually on NPR or the like, or Public Radio International or something, but I think it grew out of that. I'll just say that. And now it's a podcast. And I was first alerted to it actually through a meditation app. Like I do the 10% Happier app, which is actually I'll throw a plug for that because I find that very helpful. You can pick different meditation teachers and different meditation tracks, and it's got like an interview with someone, then it's followed by a little like guided meditation. I've tried a handful of them over the years, and I like this one best, but there's also a podcast for that, the 10% Happier podcast. And on it, just as an aside, around the time of when George Floyd was killed by the Minneapolis police officer, Dan Harris threw out this thing as Seen on Radio as a great resource for like a white person trying to wrap their head around the history of race in America. And so I looked into it. I just made note of it. I looked into it. I can't tell you how much stuff of the sort I've consumed over the last like 9 months, and learned an enormous amount. But this podcast for me synthesizes it all in the most digestible way. So that's why it's kind of a go-to for me. And really what it was the history of it all, which is what made me think when you were talking before. It's like I understood some of these the dynamics and the ideas of systemic racism and kind of recognizing it is one thing, but the sort of history lesson of this show and really reveals like that racism was 100% intentional, created in order for those rich people to get what they wanted. And anyway, but if you're intrigued by some of this stuff that we've been talking about, I actually think among the sort of books that are brought up that this podcast series would be very advantageous to kind of learning some of that history. And so it's broken down into seasons. And so I first came to it through the season 2, which is called Seeing White, and that came out in 2017. And so that's just like after Trump took office. But so the little blurb, just so I don't drone on forever, is a quote, "Just what's going on with white people. Police shootings of unarmed African Americans, acts of domestic terrorism by white supremacists, the renewed embrace of raw, undisguised white identity politics, unending racial inequality in schools, housing, criminal justice, and hiring. Some of this feels new, but in truth, it's an old story. Why? Where did this notion of whiteness come from? What does it mean? What is whiteness for?" And so the host and producer I mentioned, John Buin, takes a deep dive into these questions along with an array of leading scholars and regular guest Dr. Chenjerai Kumanyika in this 14-part documentary series released from February to August 2017. So the framework of it is the host, Buin, and he plays it all against, so he'll basically present a kind of an audio documentary talking to experts and people that know about the topics. They break it down kind of episode to episode about something in particular. And then he runs it by his friend, Dr. Chenjerai Kumanyika, who is a Black American. So he's able then to say like, "Okay, John," and kind of so that it's not just a white dude presenting the information. And it's actually particularly interesting because of that. And I think it's probably resonates so well because I am like a well-intentioned liberal white middle class dude who can't really get it. And so this has been really helpful. And so the Seeing White is terrific. Season 3, season 1 is, I think, where they're just finding their footing as a podcast, and I think it doesn't have a focus, so I can't speak to it. I haven't heard it. Season 3 is called Men, and it's about patriarchy and misogyny and toxic masculinity. And that one, the co-host is Celeste Headley, who's a woman, and I think a woman of color, and she acts as that kind of foil, may not be the right word, to the host. But actually, I think, especially in light of all we've been talking about, and now that I've heard all 3 of these seasons, season 4 might be the best entry point. In it, that is titled "The Land That Has Never Yet Been," and that is taken from a Langston Hughes poem. "Oh, let America be America again, the land that never has yet, and yet must be." And so I think that really, like, I know we've been talking for a long time, but I knew I needed to tell you about this because of the way you were talking about history and your new understanding of it. That is the thing about all this. And so I guess just to tell you a little bit, just to give the rest of the pitch on season 4. So this actually came out this year. I listened to it last, but it was published from January to June. And so and Chenjerai Komanika comes back, and they talk about democracy in America, and basically, like, has that ever been, and what did that look like? And it was, and then one of the reasons I think it's such a good entry point is because, like, they'll pull a whole episode out of the season 2 Seeing White that fits into this narrative. That they pull a whole episode out of season 3 about sexism that falls into this narrative. But it's all the things you said. So I'm not going to repeat any of that, but like literally everything you said earlier is laid out for me in these podcasts.
Yeah, so I wrote that down. So I will definitely be giving that a listen for sure. That sounds.
You may not need it now, but I did, and I think folks listening who are curious and need an entry point, this might offer one.
Yeah.
So there you go.
All right.
Awesome,
well, guys. This was fun.
Super fun.
An absolute blast. Thank you so much for putting this together, Dave.
Pleasure.
I guess it's like the 3rd Long Walk Short Drink this year, I feel like.
Oh, it might be. Yeah, that's true. A good one, though. It was worth the wait.
Yeah, fantastic one. Stan, man, thanks for joining us, and thanks for sharing the insights to your election. It was great to hear all that stuff.
Yeah, thank you for being so open about that. I wasn't sure if that was going to be on the table, and I wanted to make sure to have a point to tell you, like, how cool I thought it was. But I'm extra glad that you leaned into it as much as you did. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I had a blast. I'm looking forward to the next time.
This was lovely. Thank you so much, both of you. And let's be in touch.
Absolutely. All right, fellas.
All right, happy holidays, fellas.
Please send my love and Ash's love to your respective families, and I love you both. And looking forward to the next time.
All right, love you too. Take care.
Yep.
Bye, guys. All right, how about that? So I've got a few other recommendations for you, and then I'll finish up with some of those shameless plugs I was talking about of things that I made that I'm recommending to you. But things that I didn't get to in the conversation, but prepped for this this podcast episode, so would be the following. November 27th would have been Bruce Lee's 80th birthday, and there was a bunch of stuff this year that came out, some to directly celebrate that or in honor of that, and others just I don't know if that'd be coincidences, but so first off, there was the Criterion box set that came out in the summer. Listeners to the show know I love me some Criterion. They are the hallmark of quality for these kinds of like special releases on home video. Back in the day, it was Laserdiscs, and then in its DVDs, which they still make, but also now, especially in its Blu-rays. So it was all his films. It was the Big Boss, Fist of Fury, Way of the Dragon, Enter the Dragon, Game of Death, and the Game of Death sequel, actually, as well as the vintage documentary called I can't remember what it's called actually. That's one of the elements of the set I haven't watched yet, but I know it was a precursor to the one that I was familiar with. Called The Legend, I think. The Man, the Myth, the Legend. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But that documentary's on there, as well as a bunch of other special features. A really cool. It's almost like a magazine. It's a 70s looking magazine. That's the liner notes. It's wonderful. And Enter the Dragon is like all those films have never been available together before, because they're most of them are owned by Golden Harvest or whoever has that catalog. But Enter the Dragon, of course, is Warner Brothers. And anyway, I could go on and on about just that box set, which is fucking great. But what else? So that wasn't even something. I meant to actually focus this whole Bruce Lee thing around the Be Water bundle, is what I called it. So there's a book called Be Water, there's a film called Be Water, and there's a new series of the Bruce Lee podcast called that's centered around the Be Water, which is his most famous quote, and perhaps his one true like entry into like modern philosophy, or any philosophy really. Like, it's his own sort of, that whole empty your mind, be formless, shapeless, like water. You pour water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You pour water into a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. So you see, anyone looking for a Bruce Lee impersonator, hit me up. So we'll start with and on June 6th, the Be Water 30 for 30, that ESPN series came out. So it's directed by Vietnamese-American filmmaker Bao Nguyen, and it's a gripping, fascinating, intimate look, not just at the final defining years of Bruce Lee's life, but the complex, often difficult, and seismic journey that led to his ultimate emergence as a singular icon in the histories of film, martial arts, and even the connection between the Eastern and Western worlds. I particularly like that it places him in the context of the mid-'60s and early '70s through an Asian American lens, and though there are modern interviews captured, you don't see them in like high def. Actually, you don't see the people at all. You only see footage from the time that's being depicted, and you hear people's voices, and at the end there's kind of a nice roll call. But I can't recommend that enough. I believe it's on ESPN Plus now. And they said it'd probably come to home video at some point, but yeah, if you have the ability to watch that, you must. And so also there's the Be Water, My Friend, The Teachings of Bruce Lee, which is written by his daughter Shannon, his only surviving child at this point. Brandon Lee died in 1993. In the book, Shannon shares the concepts at the core of his philosophy, showing how they can serve as tools of personal growth and self-actualization. The description on the website says, more than just an exercise in physical discipline, martial arts are an apt metaphor for living a fully realized life. And so this does a great job. I've been working my way through it kind of slowly, but, Shannon knows her father's philosophies inside out, and in 100 plus, 120 some episodes of the Bruce Lee podcast that started in, I want to say 2016 maybe, or 17, would take one and then kind of apply it with her friend Sharon Lee, no relation, cultural anthropologist, and they would kind of apply it to modern concerns, kind of unpack it from the martial arts context, and then apply it to, in ways we could apply it to our own lives. And they had a nice interaction with audience, and a nice little community there that I've really enjoyed and gotten a ton from over the years. But they'd been on I think the last one of those was published almost 2 years ago or something like that, as Shannon took time off to write this book. And I'm so glad she did. And I got the audio book as well, and I'm kind of just going through it a little bit at a time. And augmenting that with weekly episodes of what they're calling Season 2 of the Bruce Lee podcast. Sharon's not along for the current iteration, but it's interview-based now, and Shannon continues to share the philosophies as she and her guests dive deep into how they have aligned with and been inspired by Bruce Lee and his philosophies, and how they've motivated themselves to step into their own potential and keep on flowing. So there's that. Oh man, there's one other thing that just happened in the last couple of days as I'm recording this. There is a bill that just passed in the House, brought by California Representative Judy Chu, and it's House Resolution 1236, quote, recognizing the 80th birthday of Bruce Jun-Fan Lee and the immense and positive impact that his legacy continues to have in creating a bridge between cultures, championing values of self-respect, self-discipline, and tolerance in our nation, and pioneering and cultivating new and innovative genre of martial arts, representation in media, and guiding philosophies in the United States and around the world. So how about that? Big year for Bruce Lee fans like myself. So another thing I didn't get to that has brought me a lot of comfort and joy this year is the podcast How Did This Get Made? How Did This Get Made is a podcast hosted by Paul Scheer, June Diane Raphael, and Jason Mantzoukas, and each episode, which typically has a different guest, features the deconstruction and mockery of outlandish and bad films. That's the Wikipedia entry. I don't love the word mockery, so I'll throw in the description from the show page on Earwolf, which is the podcast network that hosts it. Have you ever seen a movie so bad that it's amazing? I like that spin on it. And it really is a good-natured ribbing of quote-unquote bad films. But for instance, like there's been a ton of Van Damme movies on there, and at the end, they'll say, like, do you recommend watching this? And sometimes, like if you got a blood sport or something, they'll be like, fuck yeah, watch this. It's a lot of fun. And other times, I can't think. There are movies where it's just like, no, this is not worth your time. But the discussion is always fun. So they have bi-weekly movie episodes for more than 10 years now. I only caught on a few years ago, starting with like those Van Damme episodes and listening to other movies that I was familiar with. And now, just this year, I started to listen to also the mini episodes, which are the in between the weeks where the movies are discussed. It's just the Paul Scheer, Tall John Scheer, for those who listen. And he he takes questions like, answering like life advice. They're kind of all over the place, but they're short, and they also tell you the movie that's going to be on next week if you want to watch it ahead of time. And the last few months, they've done these choir chats, which are Paul and then Jason essentially doing what we did and we do on this podcast all the time, which is sharing things that we enjoy. But that's been a nice feature during this time. So How Did This Get Made also did, they had this long-running Transformers 2 Revenge of the Fallen gag, that where they have a mailbag and people will send things to their, to the Earwolf offices. And there's this one guy that grew to like a couple of guys. Anyway, they were sending copies of that DVD, Transformers 2 Revenge of the Fallen, wanting them to, cover it on the episode, or an episode. I mean, I can't remember what the tally was, but they would send them in these creative ways, and it was just kind of this ongoing bit. But then they decided to end the bit, the Michael Bay, is what they're calling themselves, with a charity episode. So they did record, the gang did record an episode for Transformers 2 Revenge of the Fallen, and it's 100% of the proceeds of which now go to, well, they initially went to Get Out the Vote charity leading up to the election, but 100% of the proceeds now go to Feeding America, a nonprofit that helps food banks across the country. And so the episode is $5, and you can download it at hdtgminfo.com until December 22nd. So not much time left there. They've been doing a series of live stream video sessions. They did one starting with cats, in the fall, and then at the same time we were recording this episode, they were doing one of two Christmas movies. And so if someone is hearing this in December of 2020, you may still be able to get tickets for these at hdtgminfo.com. How did this get made? Music, we talked a little bit about the Pearl Jam thing, but you can see that my full review and unboxing on our YouTube channel. But another kind of umbrella term that all fell under one title this year would be Letter to You from Bruce Springsteen. So Letter to You is the 20th studio album for Bruce Springsteen, and it marks his first new studio album with the E Street Band since 2014's High Hopes. Also released on October 23rd when the album came out is an accompanying documentary directed by longtime collaborator Tom Zimney, which is described as, quote, a tribute to the E Street Band, rock and roll, and the way music has shaped Springsteen's life. It captures the boss reflecting on music, love, and loss while recording Letter to You in just 5 days back in November of 2019, with the full band in studio together for the first time since Born in the USA, so they say. I don't know. I saw, just for myself, I watched Blood Brothers for the first time. And I believe that was around the 1995, 96 when they were doing the greatest hits. And he had the band come in. But I guess they didn't all play together. I don't know. Anyway, they're not talking about that. They're talking about this right now and very proud of it. It's black and white. You can see Bruce play a song on acoustic guitar in the control room, and then these world-class musicians and lifelong friends come up with arrangements on the spot. And then it has these kind of poetic meditations underlying the material in between. It is super, super cool. It's on Apple Plus, so when you get your free trial to watch Ted Lasso over and over again, you can work this in as well. So it's called Bruce Springsteen's Letter to You, which you can find on Apple Plus. Springsteen also did a series of interviews the week of the release on Apple Music, Apple Music Radio, I guess, and they're called Letter to You, and they've got a bunch of different guests. He talks to his buddy Steve Van Zandt, but he talks to Clive Davis and John Landau. There's an episode with Eddie Vedder and Dave Grohl. I think Brandon Flowers from The Killers. It's pretty cool. Jon Stewart also. I think that might be all of the guests, actually. But so that's worthwhile as well. Side note, speaking of radio, and Bruce, he did a series of DJ sessions that he called From My Home to Yours during quarantine. And he's up to volume 15 right now. And he basically just spins records and kind of, he's got themes to the episodes, and he does that kind of, it's all that voice he kind of discovered for the Born to Run autobiography that then evolved into the Broadway show, and then Western Stars, and now the Letter to You documentary. It's that kind of he talks slow like this. He plays a little, on background music, and he says things like, about social commentary and whatnot, and eventually he might just go, wear a fucking mask. Anyway, that's not the greatest, that's great representation of it, but some of the standouts for me would be Volume 5, American Skin, Volume 6, Down to the River to Pray, and Volume 14, Farewell to the Thief. American Skin and Down to the River to Pray are both around that time George Floyd was murdered. And then Farewell to the Thief was a kind of a Halloween/election episode. It was a weird kind of balance, but it was really fun and a great selection of music. So if you've got Sirius XM, I can't remember if I got a chance to mention this in the group conversation. I don't think I did. So check out the gosh, there's channels on Sirius XM for Pearl Jam. There's a permanent channel for U2 now. There's a E Street channel. So, and then all those other great ones that Palmer mentioned, and there's a Lithium and all this stuff. So I don't love the sound quality, but for the programming, it's worth it. So check it out. I think it's on the app. You just search for E Street Radio and listen to From My Home to Yours. It's kind of archived like a podcast kind of. Oh, and unexpected. I'm not sure how many we're up to now. I think I was trying to prepare 10. I felt like I didn't get to 10, and now I feel like I've said too many. But I'll just say quickly, the Last Dance, the documentary about Michael Jordan and the Bulls. If you didn't see that, it's on Netflix now, and I can't remember how many parts it is or whatever. And I've gone on too long about too many things. I gotta tell you still about the stuff I made. So, I also ran out of time to make notes on this one. So I'll just say The Last Dance. If you have any inclining to watch it, definitely do so. I am not a sports guy. I don't keep up with any of that. And, but it kind of brings you right back to that time. And it was inescapable. The Bulls sort of cultural, presence, Michael Jordan in particular, and the kind of portrait of excellence there, and how that manifests in him, personally, and sort of, I won't say the toll it takes, but, I don't know. You see, I mean, my wife and I had a lot of debate as to whether or not, he was an asshole. For me, I was like, I think he sort of has a code, and if you work within that code, then he's cool. But it is intense. He is intense, and that documentary is just fantastic. However many parts it is, it's worth every minute. So The Last Dance, now on Netflix. Check it out. Also Netflix, I don't say too much about it because I haven't seen that much of it yet, but The Dairy Girls, I just discovered. It's delightful. But anyway, so my last sort of official pick here it would be theater. We didn't get to really go to much theater this year, but there is, some live theater that has been available online because of COVID. Like the National Theater offered weekly shows from April to July where they streamed archived film performances on YouTube, on their YouTube channel, and I think took donations. In May, they had the Nick Dear adaptation of Frankenstein from 2011, directed by Danny Boyle and starring Benedict Cumberbatch and Johnny Lee Miller swapping the creature creator roles. I've talked about that when I saw it back in 2011 when they ran it like in theaters. Or like movie theaters through satellite. And then I think I talked about it on an episode a while back when they brought it out of moratorium for the Frankenstein 200 anniversary. But due to this, I was able to watch on YouTube. I might have been able to download it and put it in my own archive, which was great. Such a joy. I'm so glad to have that. Disney Plus put up Hamilton with the original cast, which was fucking awesome. But those were supposed to be just special mentions. They're just sort of special mentions for theater. But I ended up having a theater bucket because I wanted to call attention to a particular play that is on Amazon Prime, and it's called What the Constitution Means to Me. And What the Constitution Means to Me is a 2017 American play by Heidi Schreck. It ran on Broadway, or it was recorded on Broadway March 31st, 2019 at the Hayes Theater, with Schreck herself in the leading role. And in it, she addresses themes such as women's rights, immigration, domestic abuse, and the history of the United States, varying the time period throughout, performing some scenes as her modern self and others as her 15-year-old self, participating in constitutional debate contests, something she really did. And the play, which is almost a one-person show, received accolades such as the nomination for the Best Play in the Tony Awards and a finalist spot for the 2019 Pulitzer Prize for Drama. It is excellent. I know the things that I listed there sound intense, but it's also super funny. It's really touching. It's a really special production and play, and I can't recommend that enough. So I don't know what the final tally was, but those are my recommendation of other people's stuff that we didn't get to in our already like super long podcast. But if you're still listening, I'm going to give you a little rundown of the things that I myself made and put out in 2020. Okay. I made a short documentary called Jingle Dress Dancers in the Modern World, Ojibwe People and Pandemics. For the Ojibwe, song and dance have the power to heal, and this documentary explores the origins of the jingle dress dance tradition with Ojibwe historian Brenda J. Child, who also describes what it means to dancers and Ojibwe people today, and how it has evolved to include modern protest movements such as Standing Rock and calls for racial justice. So Dr. Child and I expanded upon an interview that I filmed with her in the fall of 2019, just before the pandemic began. And then we supplemented it with new photographs by Eugene Tuffe, whose name I hope I'm saying correctly. So he took these new photos for his Jingle Dress project, photo project this summer, as well as we included a remote interview with a young Jingle Dress dancer who talks about how the tradition has helped her heal from post-traumatic stress. So it's just over 15 minutes long, and you can watch it at tinyurl.com/jingledressdoc or search Jingle Dress Documentary on YouTube, and it should pop up. So that's like a kind of a classy thing I did. Jacko, as we call him, our adaptation of James O'Barr's graphic novel, The Crow, is now streamable online on YouTube. Now, this is kind of a long story. I won't get into in too much detail here because we're on hour like 27. But I made a documentary about our time making that film, or I should say I finished a documentary someone else started called Inertia, Remaking the Crow, and that is supposed to come out on Lunch Meat VHS, like a limited edition VHS cassette run in the new year. And to kind of go along with that, we put up the adaptation on the Lunch Meat VHS YouTube page, so you can watch. So I think what someone Palmer was joking is like the 4K restoration. So I was actually putting together a trailer for that documentary when Josh Schaefer, who kind of runs Lunch Meat, reached out to me through my website in like, I want to say April. And so I was already kind of in it, thinking like that this 3-minute trailer I was working up would be the only thing people would see of that documentary. And he wants to release like the movie, but I'm pretty sure that's like super illegal. And so I was like, we could put out the documentary, which I do, own the rights to my own story, of course. That's the idea. Hopefully that will come to pass. But so that led to me like doing the match cutting to create new masters of these things, going back to the original tapes. And I use that giant SVHS, like professional grade recorder that I talked about years ago. I mean, it's all such a long story, but anyway, long story sort of short is that, I went back to those original tapes and match cut the documentary as best I could, the things that had not been like molded. And so that looks as good as it possibly can. That's not available online. You can watch the trailer for that on my website, which is davidallman.net/inertia. You can see that, INERTIA. You can also see that trailer on the Lunch Meat VHS YouTube page. Maybe I'll make like a playlist on our page where you can see all these too. If you go to YouTube, /Long Walk Short Drink. But so I ended up even adding back like 6 minutes of footage. So it's kind of this version of that movie. It says yet another version of that movie. Oh my God. Like 25 years after the first time we finished it, but it's never looked so good. It's never, this is the best possible version. It's up-res to HD. It's not 4K. That'd be ridiculous, but it looks amazing. And it's actually because of the show that I had that in my mind to do, because I sent Double D like a gift of the DVD a few years ago, and I realized you could barely see it. So anyway, it looks amazing for what it is. It's been some nice feedback. I guess it's an underground tape. Like there's a listing for it on like a Crow collectible site that is for, I think, $10,000. It's absurd. I actually don't think the guy has a tape of it, but whatever. So that's kind of a big deal. You can check that out. I did some podcast guest spots. So I did another appearance on the Jean Pod Van Dam cast on the Pod Bros Network, episode 118, where we talk about the Van Dam was doing a bunch of fun stuff like with his kids on his YouTube page, and so we talk about that, and so you can check out there's a video version of that on their YouTube page, on the Pod Bros YouTube page, and then also I ended up on the I Must Break This podcast, which is a fan podcast celebrating the cinematic career of Dolph Lundgren. I'm on episode 61, where we talk about Universal Soldier regeneration. And so that was a really fun and unexpected connection to make. And so I don't know why I'm laughing. I'm just laughing because I don't know what these podcasts are. Anyway, I was proud to be on both of them. And so check them out. What else? A friend of the podcast and Cabin Kid Crams finished an album under the name Possible Bird, and I did some video work for that. That I think will be a short documentary. There's a trailer for that you can see on my Instagram page. If you go to just /David Allman, ULLMAN, in the IGTV tab, you can see that it's under a preview for the album, but it's essentially kind of a preview for the documentary as well. You can also see there I ended up doing a music video for his song Bloom. It has ties to 20 plus years of he and I collaborating on stuff, and so I think that documentary is going to ultimately be called Something to Me. And I was about to dive into it in April when Josh from Lunch Meat reached out, and then I just ended up spending quite a long time in the working with the Crow stuff. Oh, I didn't. There's more there. I knew there was more. There's always more Crow, but this stuff is actually super cool. So I did a video commentary exclusive to the Lunch Meat VHS page. So if you have to watch this on Lunch Meat VHS's YouTube, or I think you can link to it by going to davidallman.net/thecrow. But so as a 41-year-old, I sat and watched this like new cut of the film and, gave commentary along the way, and it was really cool. And there's a little bit in there where you can see I actually added one shot. I filmed a new shot in 2020 to insert into that 25-year-old effort, because it was something that I just couldn't get my hands on at the time. So you have to check that out to see it. You can see the behind the scenes of it right smack dab in the commentary. But there's also 2 existing commentaries for that never really came to anything or got to be seen by anybody, as none of this really did. But so one is completely period, like while we were making the movie as teenagers. So it's like clips from me. I think it's from an interview, or like I tried to sit for an interview with no one. And I found that didn't work, but it had the vibe, I realized later, of like someone of like a commentary, like a director commentary. So I worked it into one, and you can watch that on Vimeo. I made like a whole gallery of these. And so I believe you got a link to that from the davidallman.net/The Crow. And so that's the 1998 commentary. And so it's like a side-by-side of the movie and that version of it that existed at the time. But I basically made kind of a mini documentary on the right-hand side of the screen where I put B-roll from the time to everything I was talking about. It took a long time, but I was just, invested in it. It was really nice. It's hard to explain, but like when you have that much footage from so many years of your life and it's like scattered all over the place, because I was working on these projects, I knew where everything was. And I was just like, fuck it, let's just do it. And so I did that. And then there was a commentary I recorded with Jacko in 2003 that was supposed to be part of this thing. There was going to be a Crow fan film site. We were working with the people who actually own the film rights to like have this website and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, that it seemed like it was going to happen, but at some point just never did. And then this never got shared. So again, I used the audio track and I put like a 2-screen situation, and then I illustrated all the things we were talking about. And in that version, I actually use a lot of like screen grabs from the comic, scans from the comics, so you can see how it lines up. But it's another different experience. So there's this kind of like special edition online version of that movie. Now, if you go to davidallman.net/The Crow, you can link to all of it. Oh my God. It never ends. And then hopefully in the new year here, there'll be the limited edition VHS that I'll let you know about that when it happens. Oh man. So also as far as then music, I actually played music in front of a microphone. I relearned some songs for the first time in like 5 years. I had an opportunity to do a short set for like my day job. They have like these Friday socials, and then somebody remembered that I did that, and they invited me, and it was really great. I hadn't performed since the Furious Light tour ended in August of 2015, and it was a little harder than I expected to like just jump back into it, but I'm super glad I did. You can check that out on YouTube. I have like so YouTube/David Allman, and there's like 3 of these little quarantine type things. For that first one, I think if you listen closely enough, I bet you can hear like the anxious quiver in my voice and my heart beating its way out of my chest. But by the end of it, I was buoyed by the melody and the goodwill of those cheering me on. And my dogs might have snored through it, but those kind of quarantine mini house concerts got me back behind the microphone with a guitar for the first time in half a decade. So that was pretty cool. DreamingOutLoudRecords.com site is got almost the full archive now of sort of Cabin Kid related musical efforts. And so I'm looking at it right now, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There are more than 40 releases on this son of a bitch. And they're all sounding as good as they can. A lot of them have video components. Some of them have like, I don't know how many pages, like PDFs, like sort of deluxe liner notes. I've been chipping away at this thing for years, and I just decided at the beginning of the year that I was gonna make a point of getting this, to as complete as I can. There's a couple of holdouts notable, and I can't get into listing everything, but if you're curious about my musical output or motos or like any of these folks we're talking about, it's all free, all at DreamingOutLoudRecords.com. I also finished this year the archive of what I call my mix albums. And so by the I was going to say by the time this is out, I should have one for 2020, but I won't. I'm still working on that and be ready in January. But since 2004, I had this practice of like putting together songs that kind of trace my emotional trajectory for the year. And then I would send them out to, at first just friends. And then once I got to, it was like the year before I started playing music publicly. And then I started to send them to like my mailing list physically. It was kind of, for me, it was a little bit like the tradition of being a member of the Pearl Jam fan club. You would get a holiday single like around Christmas time. Theirs were their own songs, like a 45 A and B side. But anyway, this was something I did for a long time. I almost stopped doing it, but I'm glad I didn't. And now they are all up for streaming and download at davidallman.net/mix albums. You can kind of navigate to, how many of them are there? There would be 10, 11, 12, 13. I think there's 15 years worth there right now. I'm starting to get hoarse. I'm talking so damn much just in this like intro, outro. Bless your heart if you're listening. Maybe in the new year, I'll kind of say this stuff as we go. So the dump at the end is not this intense. But so lastly, there's in March, a newer friend of mine asked me for a coronavirus playlist to help him like pass the time. And he was now spending it home. He didn't know me well enough to realize what a task I might make of such a thing. And so his innocent request resulted in weeks of my racking my brain and culling through my music library for a satisfying mix of songs for the theme at hand. Eventually, I settled on sticking to tunes available on Spotify to prevent myself from spending too much time like ripping CDs and matching volumes and editing this ideal flow between songs that I do for the mix albums. I also figured it'd be a good way of like connecting folks to the libraries of the artists represented. They should just be a click away. So I didn't attempt to cater to any cultural relevance or coolness. I simply picked songs that sung to me and whose titles formed a sort of narrative of their own. So you can find that on Spotify. I guess actually probably the best place to link to it is if you go to davidallman.net/music and scroll to the bottom of the page. Or I wonder, maybe you can search a Shelter in Place quarantine mix on Spotify and listen to it. But it's 48 songs. I hope you can find some solace or strength or comfort in them. I try to build them around themes of hope and isolation and resilience and beauty. So anyway, so there you go. There's more. I'm sure there's probably more, but I'm not going to tell you about it. You can, of course, follow us on Twitter at LWSD Pod. You can go LWSDpod.com for the archive or find, if you're listening to this on an app already, of course, then you found it. I don't know. If you have a friend you think would be into it, please tell them about it. But regardless, I'm so grateful to you for, spending this time with me. If you're listening at this point, holy cow, all the useless bonus points in the world go to you. Thank you for giving a shit. And we'll talk to you next year. Cheers.
I'm all for boners.